perfect combination of peanut butter and chocolatey flavor. Reese's Puff cereal, part of a complete breakfast.
Cereal is your go-to breakfast most days. You may want to rethink which boxes are getting poured into the bowl.
Yeah, Mallory Anderson and Consumer Reports explain how to find a healthier option your entire family can still enjoy.
You already know that sugary cereal isn't exactly a healthy food, but a recent study finds that breakfast cereals marketed to kids may be getting even worse, sweeter, saltier, and less nutritious. Consumer Reports has tips to help you make smarter choices at the grocery store. Do your kids beg for those brightly colored boxes in the cereal aisle? Well, a recent study took a close look at newly launched cereals between 2010 and 2023 geared to kids ages 5 to 12. Over that time, the fat, sodium, and sugar content trended higher, while some of the good stuff like protein and fiber dropped. When it comes to sugar, on average, a single serving packed nearly 3 teaspoons. That's about 45% of the maximum amount of added sugars the American Heart Association recommends a child have in an entire day. Consumer Reports has advice on how to choose a cereal that offers a better balance of nutrition.
In our family, breakfast is a big deal. It's a real kickstarter to the day. And breakfast helps stabilize your blood sugar and keep you satiated so you're less likely to overeat later in the day.
Cereals are convenient and can be a good source of some nutrients. Choosing the right one, though, makes all the difference.
When shopping for cereal, don't just look at the front of the box. Flip it over and take a close look at the ingredients list and the nutrition facts. Ingredients are listed in order of amount from most to least. So whole grains like whole wheat, oats, or barley should be the first ingredient.
Whole grains have fiber, which is great for your gut and keeps you full. Boosted further by adding in unsweetened dried or fresh fruit. Also try to choose one with less than 6 grams of added sugar per serving.
If your family's favorite cereal has more sugar than you'd like, don't feel like you have to give it up completely. Just try mixing it half and half with a lower sugar, higher fiber cereal. That way everyone stays happy and you're sneaking in some extra nutrition. It's an easy way to find a good balance.
Adding a cup of low-fat dairy or soy milk can also add enough protein to keep blood sugar steady. And your family healthy and ready to take on the day. And Consumer Reports says it's worth measuring what you pour. Some people serve themselves more cereal than they realize. Pour your usual amount, then measure it so you know what you're really getting in terms of sugar, calories, and sodium. In studio, I'm Mallory Anderson.
By some people, she means me. It's okay. If you enjoy consumer news like this, take out your phone right now. We've got a QR code here for you. If you can scan it, you can sign up for our WISN 12 consumer newsletter.
Black is brown, hazelnut, cinnamon, black tea. And it's all beautiful to me. Call your brothers magnificent, call all the sisters queens. We all on the same team, blues and pyrus, no colors ain't a thing.
And finally, in the UK, a shower gel commercial has been scrubbed off the screens. Not for bad marketing, but for bad messaging. Regulators say the Sanex advertisement risked suggesting that black skin was problematic and white skin was the standard of beauty. The ruling reignites a debate brands never seem to learn from. When does selling skincare cross the line into reinforcing racial stereotypes? Our final story has more on the latest controversy.
A shower gel ad meant to sell smooth, hydrated skin has instead left Xanax drenched in controversy. UK regulators have banned the commercial, ruling that it risked sending the damaging message that black skin is problematic, while white skin is the desired ideal. The advertisement, aired in June, opened with a black model, shown with angry stretch marks, and another covered in cracked clay-like material. The voiceover spoke of skin that scratches day and night and dries out even by water. Seconds later, a white woman appeared, blissfully showering with Xanax, as the ad promised 24-hour hydration and relief, as simple as a shower. For viewers who complained, the message was hard to miss. Troubled dark skin, cured only when replaced with glowing white skin. The Advertising Standards Authority agreed, ruling that the ad created a negative comparison between skin tones and risked reinforcing the harmful stereotype that darker skin is flawed, while lighter skin is the benchmark. Colgate-Palmolive, which owns Xanax, pushed back, insisting it was simply a before and after sequence, not about race at all. Approval body Clearcast even defended the ad as showcasing inclusivity, but the regulator wasn't convinced. Xanax now joins a long list of brands that have scrubbed up badly when it comes to race in advertising. In 2017, Dove sparked outrage with an ad showing a black woman transforming into a white woman. Dove admitted that they had missed the mark. In the same year, Nivea's White is Purity deodorant campaign backfired spectacularly. The ad showed a white woman and received backlash for promoting racial purity overtones. In 2017, Pepsi too had to pull a commercial that showed Kendall Jenner giving a police officer a Pepsi during a protest. It was seen as trivializing serious issues like the Black Lives Matter movement. In 2018, H&M was blasted for dressing a black child in a coolest monkey in the jungle hoodie. H&M issued multiple apologies and pulled the item from sale. Heineken raised eyebrows in the same year, with the tagline "Lighter is better." They featured a bartender sliding a beer past several dark-skinned individuals to a light-skinned woman. In some cases, the companies claimed good intentions. But as the Xanax saga proves yet again, intentions don't erase impact. Advertising doesn't exist in a vacuum. Images and words carry history, weight, and the power to reinforce or dismantle stereotypes. The latest misstep is more than just a PR embarrassment. It's a reminder that in 2025, brands still need to think harder about what they are really selling, not just products, but the messages woven into every frame.
North Carolina.
Philanthropy is often a word people associate with the wealthiest in society, many of whom are white. But at the Charlotte Museum of History, there's a new exhibit that aims to reframe what philanthropy entails and spotlights the efforts of black philanthropists. WFAE's Elvis Menayese has more.
Jasmine Stowe fiddles with a box at the museum that has chalk with a range of colors like blue, pink, and green. She settles for white and heads over to a black wall.
I'm writing "Give Back. Our babies depend on it."
And why did you decide to write that?
I am an educator, so children are important to me, and I know how important it is to make sure they have the resources that they need to be successful.
Stowe has left her mark on a wall topped with a big sign that reads, "Why I Give Back." The wall is plastered with messages to ease burdens, to build futures, and "I love us." A big poster of Sarah Stevenson also stands out. Stevenson, who was black, was a former Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Board member who helped create a plan to bus students for desegregation in the 1970s. Nearby the picture of Stevenson is Charles Thomas. Thomas is with the Knight Foundation and one of the people behind the exhibit.
We wanted to profile folks that were civil rights activists, folks that were known, as well as folks that are giving in what some might quantify as small ways and little ways, just to show that philanthropy belongs to the African American community.
Besides being a school board member, Stevenson was also involved in local politics through the Black Political Caucus and formed the Tuesday Morning Breakfast Forum. Candidates running for local office often turn to the forum to showcase what they would bring to the community if elected. Thomas says Stevenson's impact needed to be spotlighted.
For Sarah Stevenson to be the leader that she was in our community, and then to give back to us by holding a forum, by convening, by bringing people together.
A prominent Charlotte educator in the early 1900s named George Davis is also featured. Thomas says it's key to highlight philanthropy, efforts that focus on volunteer work and supporting others.
If we don't have these stories, we don't uplift them, we begin to feel powerless, like we're not in control and that we can't make the changes in our community that we have been doing for centuries.
The Soul of Philanthropy debuted at Johnson C. Smith University in 2015 and has since toured more than 30 cities, including Chicago and Atlanta. Wandering the exhibit is Valeda Forward. She's interacting with museum visitors alongside Thomas.
Thank you for coming out. I came last week. Wonderful. I brought my girlfriend. She's here from Gainesville, Florida.
Oh, amazing. Wow. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Forward is the exhibit's co-founder and is behind the book titled Giving Back, which celebrates African American philanthropists. It was published in 2011 with Thomas as the co-author. Forward says she wrote the book to change perceptions on how black people are framed when it comes to philanthropy.
The stories mainly told and highlighted centered white givers. And when black people were included, we were with our hands out or in need.
Forward says she knew a different story. Forward, the African American, is also the co-founder of the new generation of African American philanthropists, a group formed in 2006 that now has nearly 100 members. The group distributes grants and support black initiatives and nonprofits. Since its founding, Forward says they've handed out over $2 million in Charlotte. Part of the reason Forward says the exhibit and black stories on philanthropy are unique is tied to African Americans' history in a country where they have been deprived
of opportunities to have wealth and stripped of any worldly possessions and even denied our humanity in some instances. And so in response, we leaned into our humanity through generosity and giving in a host of ways, the ways you do when you don't have currency or money to give, in caring for each other, showing love.
When thinking about the exhibit, Forward often likes to paraphrase an old African proverb on display
that says, until the lion tells his story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.
The message is one Forward hopes visitors carry with them. Elvis Menayese, WFAE News.
The Soul of Philanthropy exhibition is on display at the Charlotte Museum of History till October 19th. And a note, the Charlotte Museum of History is a financial supporter of WFAE.
That's why we have to think as black people. Stop singing and dancing and start thinking.
Wow.
Thinking and reading. I say reading is more important than watching TV.
It doesn't matter what you like to read, a thick history book, a cozy romance novel, a heavy business read, or classic literature. Whatever you read is good for you. Yet a crisis of reading is brewing, and it is happening globally. Fewer people are reading for pleasure. Take the U.S., for instance. A new report is out there. It says that over the past 2 decades, reading for pleasure has plummeted by 40%, 40%. It has declined by about 3% each year, year after year. And this is based on a study by the University College London and the University of Florida. But this is not an isolated case. Look at the UK. Reading levels among children are at their lowest in 2 decades. Fewer than 1 in 3 read regularly. In Australia, 76% children aged between 5 and 8 read for pleasure. This is a good number, but it drops dramatically as they grow older. Meanwhile, here in India, only about 37% children read for pleasure. And in Denmark, reading has fallen to such lows that the government is panicking. They want to remove the sales tax on books. And these are just some of the many cases, many examples. Reading levels are painfully low the world over, and this is thanks to a perfect storm of problems. Broadly, 2 of them: shrinking attention spans and falling literacy levels. In this digital age, we are all well acquainted with the first problem. AI has arrived. It is churning out summaries, analyzing entire books, and writing essays. So even compulsory reading has gone for a toss. Need to read a novel for class? Why bother? Just skim through the AI-generated summary. And then there's social media with its easy clicks, gripping sounds, trends, endless videos, and instant gratification. Doom scrolling is taking over and in most cases winning the fight to hold our attention. The second big problem is disparity. Reading for pleasure, whether we realize or not, is a privilege. A lot of factors play into it, like economic pressures or caregiving duties. For instance, in the U.S., high-income people read 1.5 times more than low-income people. And even if people want to read, many struggle to do it. Primary school enrollment is at a high level globally, yet about 60% students in middle and low-income countries are unable to read a simple story. According to the United Nations, if this persists by 2030, 37% children will not have basic reading skills. So a lot of factors are fueling the reading crisis. Some in our hands and some not. But escaping the reading slump is a fight worth fighting. The justifications are endless. Good reading ability gets you good grades, better employment, more opportunities, and it's easy to see why. Stacks of research show that reading is like a workout for the brain. It improves reasoning, comprehension skills, imagination, concentration, critical thinking. It even makes you more empathetic, more patient. It slows cognitive decline, it makes you happier, and it can even make you live longer, believe it or not. And this is exactly why things must change. We need governments to do better. We need structural changes that boost the education system, that address teacher shortages, and make reading more accessible. In some countries, this could mean more libraries or online resources. In others, it could mean making reading cool again with literary festivals or workshops. And we have to do better as individuals. We have to get back in the groove, whether that means reading alone, reading aloud, reading with friends, finding a community, or starting with audiobooks, whatever works for you. But whatever we do, we have to read with intention, almost as if we are trying to forge a new friendship, to find our way back to an old one. After all, what are books, if not our companions, offering us both solace and a deep connection?
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
And now, a word from the president.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
President Trump says he would like to expand his review of the Smithsonian Institution to museums around the country. On social media yesterday, he called America's museums, quote, the last remaining segment of woke. How much legal power and financial leverage does the administration actually have in this area? We're going to put that to NPR culture correspondent Anastasia C.O.W.S. Hi there.
Hey there, Mary Louise.
This builds on what the White House has called a comprehensive review of 8 Smithsonian museums. So start there. Yesterday's statement, what did it reveal about the president's thinking?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, President Trump seems specifically to target representations of Black American history and experience. In that post, he wrote, quote, everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. And also, the Smithsonian is a unique case. It's so prominent in the nation's imagination, and 62% of its funding comes from federal sources. So between this post and a later statement I received from the White House, they seem to indicate he wants to go beyond the Smithsonian to museums around the country.
But do we have any clarity on what that might look like in terms of scope or timeline or anything?
No. The White House said in the statement he will start with the Smithsonian and then go from there. So let's not forget, that is a lot of institutions. The American Alliance of Museums includes something like 22,000 organizations in its membership, and that includes everything from the giant internationally known art museums to historic houses and natural history museums, botanical gardens, all kinds of museums. And those deal with history, identity, the environment, a huge array of topics, many of them politically polarized at this point. There's new data being collected for federal funding of museums. We don't have an accurate, up-to-date read yet. For example, NEA and NEH grants have been slashed. And also, folks in the museum world are concerned that state or local officials may try to use their financial leverage within their own communities to align with Trump's vision.
Staying with the financial picture for a sec, in his post yesterday, the president said he wants to review museums the way that his administration has been auditing universities and colleges. Can he do that?
Well, it does bring up a significant legal question, right? The Trump administration has argued that universities like Harvard, Columbia, and Brown violated federal civil rights law by failing to protect their communities from alleged anti-Semitism. And it's unclear what legal argument the White House might make against museums. I talked earlier today to Patty Gerstenblith. She's a professor of law at DePaul University in Chicago, and she's a specialist in museum law. And she had this to say.
museums have a First Amendment right of expression, and that was clearly established in case law. Artistic expression is protected by the First Amendment as another form of speech.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that the government has to pay for that speech. In the meantime, it does seem that President Trump intends to try to bend American museums to his vision of this country.
NPR's Anastasia C.O.W.S, thank you so much.
You bet.
And remember, they're taking your jobs. These people coming in are taking your jobs.
Project 2025. I think we have to leave it there by the Trump team.
When it comes to President Trump's second term in office, the Heritage Foundation has had a pretty big influence. That is the conservative think tank that published Project 2025, widely seen as the blueprint for many of Trump's recent actions, like cracking down on immigration, gutting the federal workforce, and ending funding for public media, among other things. More recently, Trump picked the Heritage Foundation's chief economist to lead the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The appointment surprised many people because the BLS is traditionally nonpartisan agency, or seen as one. We wanted to learn more about this influential group and its relationship to President Trump, so we called up E.J. Fagan. He's a political science professor at the University of Illinois Chicago and author of The Thinkers, The Rise of Partisan Think Tanks and the Polarization of American Politics. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Before we get to everything that's happening right now, is there one specific moment you could point to where the Heritage Foundation starts to make the shift from a Mitt Romney, George W. Bush style conservative organization to fully embracing the current MAGA Republican Trump era party?
I can, although I'd say, I don't think they ever were truly on the George W. Bush, Mitt Romney side. I think it was the Newt Gingrich, Ronald Reagan side of what you'd point to. And they very often were on the outs with certain types of Republicans. The Republican Party is a coalition, and they were a piece of that coalition. But I think the moment that you see this real shift, there's a leadership transition in 2013 when kind of the old guard of the Heritage Foundation that had founded it, their president, Ed Feulner, who recently died, leaves, retires. And Jim DeMint, Republican senator, actually retires from the Senate in order to take a very large salary to be the new president of the Heritage Foundation. And you see this rapid shift from that organization kind of beginning at that point.
Yeah. So what's the best way to think about the relationship right now between Heritage and the Trump administration? So much focus was made on Project 2025, but what's the way to think about how they're interacting with each other? Who's taking cues from who?
Sure. I think that the Heritage Foundation is playing a role for Donald Trump in that his first administration was staffed by kind of the coalition of the Republican Party. A lot of people who had worked in previous Republican administrations who were pretty well qualified for their jobs, and some people from Heritage's side of the Republican Party. And that was very normal for a Republican Party administration. And what Heritage did with Project 2025 is they organized a Trump administration that could just elbow out pretty much the entire other side of the party, the Mitt Romney side of the party, the George W. Bush side of the party.
Like, what's the chicken and egg way to think about this? Was this Heritage seeing what Trump's inner orbit wanted to do and putting policy scaffolding around it? Or was it suggesting, like, if you get back in office, start here, here's some ideas?
I think there's less policy scaffolding than Heritage would want you to believe right now. The bargain that Heritage has been making really since about 2022 or so is that they're willing to be the lowest common denominator, right? They're willing to be the organization that enables a more authoritarian Republican Party.
What's one or two specific examples you would point to?
Sure. I mean, if you read Project 2025, I mean, it's arguing for the complete abolishing of whole cabinet departments. It's arguing for it's employing people who were at January 6th. It is just, as somebody who's read a lot of Heritage Foundation reports over the decades, I mean, it really becomes much more of an advocacy group, right? You start seeing much more op-eds about radical change. For example, in 2017, 2018, they're not publishing things that are pro-tariff. E.J. Antoni, who's the BLS commissioner nominee from the Heritage Foundation, he's publishing what are essentially blog posts praising Donald Trump, calling him a genius for tariffs, right? That's a real shift, and it's a shift away from what we would traditionally think of a Ronald Reagan conservatism at Heritage.
Yeah. Let's talk about him for a moment. We noted this in the intro. You just noted now. He has now been tapped to take over the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There is an opening because President Trump fired the head of BLS because he did not like the monthly economic data that was published by BLS, which raised a lot of alarms because this is supposed to be nonpartisan data that we can all trust. And Trump is signaling he doesn't want it to be that. How are you thinking about this nomination given the context of how it happened?
Antony is incredibly unqualified for that job. I mean, I think it's a sign of the decline of heritage that they couldn't find somebody better. BLS is a real job, right? This is the BLS commissioner is responsible for gathering data. I mean, this is not a traditional highly political position for a reason. I think he's going to be a disaster over there. It's already an understaffed department, a department that got hit very hard in the first part of 2025. And, I'm just very skeptical that they're going to continue putting out the current population survey, which is one of the most important data sets in not just, the study of American economics, but of the actual practice of American economics.
I think you've touched on this here and there, but what do you think the role of a think tank is in a world where the people in charge don't have much respect for expertise?
I think it depends on the think tank, right? So the premise of the Heritage Foundation was always that the experts are wrong and we're going to give you the other answer. The idea being that, the Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford and Republicans in Congress in the 1970s, they're talking to the same people Democrats are talking to. They're coming up with very similar ideas. And so, they go out and they betray conservatives. And so we're going to provide you experts, people who can give you a conservative answer to a question, not the answer that those experts who we think are liberal are going to give you. The dangerous thing is that they're still an influential organization. And so they've replaced the real policy wonks with enablers, and I think that's really if I were someone who's concerned about the conservative policy world, I'd be very concerned about that. I think that it's actually in some ways they're both their strongest and their weakest right now.
That is E.J. Fagan, political science professor and author of the book The Thinkers: The Rise of Partisan Think Tanks and the Polarization of American Politics. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
We reached out to the White House for comment on Fagan's criticisms of E.J. Antony, Trump's pick for BLS commissioner. A spokesperson sent a response which reads in part, quote, Antony's education and vast experience as an economist has prepared him to produce accurate public data. In addition to being the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation, he has frequently testified before Congress on economic issues, and his research has been featured by many think tanks and advocacy groups.
So there's a story about the lady in Louisiana. She's a flood survivor. And the rescue teams, they come through and they're, I guess, trying to recover people. And they see this woman, she's wading through the streets. I guess it had been some time after the storm. And I guess they were shocked that, she was alive. And the rescue worker said to her, oh my God, how did you survive? How did you do it? Where have you been? And she said, where I've been. Where you been? Where you been? You know what I'm saying? That's about the size of it. This is for the streets. The streets everywhere. The streets affected by the storm called America. I'm doing this for y'all. And for me, for the creator. Don't say these streets. $1 per every human being. Feel like a Katrina clap. See that Katrina clap. Listen.
Hi, my name is Joy Matoyer. I am a 17-year-old senior that attends Sci High, and in honor of the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, I want to shed light on my family's story. Hurricane Katrina, one of the deadliest and most costliest hurricanes in U.S. history, struck our home New Orleans on August 29th of 2005, and my family just happened to experience it firsthand. What drew me to this story was a quiet curiosity, a need to understand what it means to lose parts of yourself that you didn't know you're giving away. I was driven to learn more about my family's experiences because it gives me the chance to explore a family experience I've never fully unpacked. In researching this story, I find myself reflecting not only on the storm but on the tension of survival. What happens when holding on means letting go of who you were? Just 27 days before Katrina, my sister was born, leaving my parents with a newborn baby while dealing with the stress of the storm and having to evacuate. My family gathered just a few belongings that they knew they would need: clothes, food, toothbrushes, and basic essentials, taking them what would usually be about 5 hours, but took 17 hours to get from New Orleans to Houston. They didn't think the storm would be as bad as it turned out to be. They were expecting to come back home in a few days, but unfortunately, in a few days, there was no home to come back to. My father always tells me how he regrets not taking more. He wishes he would have known how much destruction would take place. All his pictures, clothes, his everything. A childhood and a lifetime full of memories wiped away, swept into the floodwaters, carried off with the tide, and never returned. Sometimes I think he grieved just not for what he lost, but also for the parts of himself that never came back. Which also brings me to not only think about my family, but also others who had to go through hardships due to the storm. This week, I had the honor of having a conversation with Monique Verdon. A citizen of the home and nation, she is an artist and a storyteller, and she is also the primary steward of the Land Memory Bank and Seed Exchange. Her words really sat with me on an emotional level because hearing someone else's story for the first time made me realize that not only did my family go through changes and tough times, but there are so many more people out there with unheard experiences. Others that also lost a part of themselves, the hurt that they carry but don't speak about. Those decisions made in dim corners, either by choice or circumstance, that shaped who they became, but left parts of themselves behind. People out there with stories that are devastatingly unique and important to them, to the world, and to New Orleans especially. One thing that Monique said that really resonated with me is a house is not a home. It was a saying her grandmother always told her at that time. I feel like that resonated with me specifically because I thought about how my family lost so much during Katrina, not just their home or belongings, but the sense of safety and togetherness that made those spaces feel like theirs. A house can be walls and a roof, but a home is memories, voices in the hallway, family recipes in the kitchen, laughter during hard times. For my family, Katrina didn't just flood their neighborhood, it separated them, scattered generations, and forced them to rebuild not just physically, but also emotionally. That quote reminded me that home isn't something you live in, it's something you live with. And after Katrina, they had to carry that home inside them, even when their house was gone. After 2 years of living in Houston, my family decided to move back because despite the tragedy, New Orleans is their home, and living in Houston for them was okay, but it wasn't New Orleans. It felt like a distant memory that they carried with them, but it just didn't quite feel the same anyplace else. This is where they wanted to be. They wanted their children to experience the culture, the food, and the music that makes up this place. The music that the traffic and construction make on a random Wednesday evening, the sound of Mardi Gras, and the excitement of catching something you've been trying to get for the past 15 minutes. They wanted us to experience the smell of seafood, the taste of crawfish, the feeling of it being too spicy, but it's just too flavorful to put down, so you have to learn to enjoy the burn. The sweetness of a Pandora snowball drowned in condensed milk with a side of nachos. The beauty of the architecture, the lively and colorful houses you see just walking down the street. The togetherness and friendly atmosphere within our community, our accents, just seeing different people interact and act so kindly like they've known each other for years. The beautiful murals and colorful graffiti you're bound to see on the side of any building, just everything that makes up New Orleans and makes us us. New Orleans is just too precious to lose, and my parents knew that, so they decided to come back home and make this my home. That's why when I heard the words, "a house is not a home," they hit me so deeply. Because my family's house was washed away, but their home lived on in every memory. Every seafood boil, every second line, every scent of seafood, and sound of brass and bounce music in the distance. Home isn't about the building or house, it's about the feeling, and for us, that feeling lives in New Orleans. It's where my roots are, even though I wasn't there when the storm hit. It shaped who my family is, and by coming back, they made sure it shaped who I am too. I was born after the storm, but raised in the love that survived it.
Why haven't you learned anything?
In recent years, 2/3 of America's public schools have lost students. And now, as more states roll out or expand private school voucher programs, many public school districts are fighting to hold on, trying new ways to recruit families and keep their schools open. In Arizona, the national model for school vouchers, families there typically get $7,500 per child through the state's fast-growing school choice program. But critics warn those dollars come at a cost, diverting critical funding from already struggling public schools. Laura Meckler is a national education reporter for The Washington Post. She's been reporting on this and joins us now. Laura, thanks for being with us. So since 2019, 2/3 of traditional public schools have lost students, lost enrollment, and that trend is accelerating. I was shocked when I read that number. What accounts for it?
Well, there's a lot of things that are behind the enrollment drops. I mean, some of it's demographics in certain places, and some of it is school choice. There, in certain states in particular, Arizona is definitely one of them, there is more and more competition for the same number of students.
And your recent reporting focuses on Arizona, which has a number of alternative options. They have a robust charter school system. There's tax money for homeschooling, expansive private school vouchers, which are available to all families regardless of income. How does it all work?
Yeah, I mean, there is really a philosophy underlying all of this, which is that, schools should be subject to the same sort of marketplace forces that are at work when we're choosing other things that are important in our lives, and that public schools should not have a monopoly on public funds or on students. And so in Arizona, they're really pushing this pretty far. So there is a robust, as you said, a robust charter school option, and we kind of know how those work. You can actually transfer to a different public school if you want to. And there are also private school vouchers. So the state will pay if you want to go to a private school or even if you want to homeschool your kids.
Are these alternative options delivering results? How do students in these schools compare to their peers in traditional public schools?
Well, we actually don't really know, because kids who are in private schools are not required to take the state tests that kids in public schools do and that we're also familiar with. I mean, there is a lot less accountability in this system. The accountability is essentially the market, that parents, if they're unhappy, they will change. But we don't have that kind of robust data that we use to compare one public school district to another.
And what's it take for public schools to stay competitive in this kind of environment?
Well, they have to really go out there and sell themselves. I mean, but it is hard for them because they have to take everybody. So, kids who are really struggling, kids who don't do well in private schools, they might bounce back. A lot of kids who have special needs are in the public schools, and they are required by law to educate them and to provide them with services. But yes, public schools are, of course, fighting back, and they're talking about their strengths and what they offer to parents, to children, to the community as a whole. So it's not like public schools are done with by any means. The vast majority of kids still do attend public schools. There's no doubt about that. But they are having to, in certain states at least, really fight for those students.
School choice is an initiative that President Trump has championed. What does this tell you about how the GOP envisions the future of education in America?
I think it very much is this idea of a marketplace, that we should not just assume. In fact, it's telling, for instance, if you talk to people who support school choice, they often refer to public schools as government schools. This idea that it's sort of a denigration of them. I don't know if anyone hears government school and thinks that sounds great. The idea that we have long sort of assumed that public schools are the public option. They're the ones that get public money. But the new philosophy is very much that if it's tax dollars, that the parents should control the money, and that if they're unhappy, they should be allowed to go somewhere else. I mean, part of the challenge, though, here is that many of the people who are benefiting from school vouchers in Arizona and elsewhere were people who are already in private schools. So in that case, it isn't so much taking away from the public schools, but it is a new expense for the state, who is paying money for those vouchers when they weren't paying any money before, and that has real budget implications.
And we should say this is going to go national because there's a new federal tax credit that's set to take effect. Is that right?
That's right. This is a really big deal. We've never had a federal tax dollars going for school choice before, but now, for the first time starting in 2027, states will have the opportunity to opt into a new program where taxpayers will get a 100% tax credit. They will get all their money back if they donate to something called scholarship granting organizations, which essentially hand out vouchers to kids in their state. So this is going, again, states have to opt in, and for Republican states or states that already have these programs, it'll be an easy choice. But for a lot of Democratic states that don't have these programs, this is going to be a real battle about whether they adopt this program.
Let's shift our focus to Oklahoma, because Oklahoma, as you well know, they're requiring applicants for teacher jobs coming from California and New York to take a so-called America First test. The state's top education official says it's designed to safeguard against, quote, radical leftist ideology. What more should we know about this?
Well, the first thing to keep in mind is the top state official, as you mentioned, Ryan Walters, is very much, this is a very Ryan Walter-y sort of thing to do, I think it's fair to say. He's quite conservative. He's on the forefront of the culture war issues, and he's done things like tried to require that the Bible be taught, and tried to make the state pay for Bibles for every student in the state and only do it in a way that they would have to buy Trump Bibles. He's done a lot of things along these lines. So this is just sort of the latest. I mean, one thing to keep in mind, and I don't know if this is going to fly, is his proposal is essentially that certified teachers have to take a test, a 50-question test. And, some of the questions are completely legitimate questions, to be clear, but they're only applying that to people coming from certain states. I don't know if that's going to ultimately survive. If you say, oh, certain people, if you're coming from New York, you have to take this test. But if you're coming from Texas, you don't.
Certainly more to come on that front. Laura Meckler of the Washington Post, thanks as always. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
A new report finds the Bronx has the largest share of families who don't have a computer at home or have access to high-speed internet. WNYC's Cameron Yee reports on what that looks like for New Yorkers.
Along the busy East Tremont Avenue in the Bronx, it's not hard to find residents who don't have high-speed internet at home.
You pay for internet
No.
at your house? Okay.
I can't really afford it. It's kind of too expensive.
59-year-old Al Christian says he can't do much without it.
And I can't listen to YouTube. I can't listen to music. I can't see my daughter. There's a lot you can't do without that internet.
Christians is among the nearly 1 in 4 households in the Bronx that lack broadband. That's according to a report by the Center for an Urban Future. It also found 1 in 3 Bronx families don't have a computer at home.
The digital divide has become a major driver of inequality in New York.
Eli Dvorkin helped write the report and says the biggest challenge is affordability.
It is separating New Yorkers into those who not only have access to computers and broadband, but with those things, access to a full world of opportunity, from education to job training to opportunities to connect with programs and services that could change the trajectory of their lives.
That's why nonprofit groups like Lyft New York, which aim to break the cycle of generational poverty, are offering free laptops to parents who need them, like 37-year-old Malika Butler.
Yo, here we go. It works.
All right, you're in.
We're in. This is beautiful. I like this.
Butler is a mom of 3, but doesn't have a computer at home for her or her kids. This laptop, she says, will be for her oldest son, who is headed to trade school to become an auto mechanical engineer.
Oh, this is really nice. The second guessing is giving this to the boy.
Butler says she knows how difficult it can be to do schoolwork without a laptop. She applied to Metropolitan College of New York on her phone.
Sometimes it restarts. Sometimes your phone freezes. Sometimes you lose internet service.
She hopes her son will have an easier time navigating school and work.
Having a laptop is going to help him, not only help him to be able to be successful and to be able to do his goals and complete everything that he needs to, but it also gives mom a little bit like a relief.
Gisele Bellos is a program manager at Lyft and says with the rising cost of food, rent, and childcare, some families can't afford their internet bills that can cost up to $100 a month.
It's not always easy to pay $70 when you're a single parent and maybe receiving public benefits. Those $70 can purchase diapers. Those $70 are purchasing clothing, school supplies, other basic needs.
Advocates say it's going to be even more important to get residents connected, as federal cuts to programs that help people buy groceries and afford health care take effect. Karen Yee, WNYC News.
Stop using and selling drugs to one another. See, we're getting ready to be put in a real trap with this legalization of marijuana. So every black person can be unemployed, and then they can sit in their corner and get high on marijuana with whatever they decide to put in it. And people won't be asking for jobs and being determined that they're going to get jobs and going to get an education. No, everybody can start getting high on marijuana because somebody said it's medicinal and it's legal.
What about?
So we better beware.
What about the people who say the legalization of marijuana is fighting against racism because you have so many black people who are unjustly incarcerated as a result of racist enforcement of these drug laws? So this would be a good thing, and it would keep black people out of greater confinement.
Joining us now is the co-director of RAND's Drug Policy Research Center, Bo Kilmer. Welcome to the program, Bo.
Good to see you, Mimi.
Can you tell us a little bit about the type of work that you do at the Drug Policy Research Center?
Yeah, so RAND is a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization that really tries to improve policy and decision-making through research and analysis. We work on a lot of different topics, but at the intersection of the work that we do on health and social and economic well-being and on criminal justice, we have our Drug Policy Research Center, where we work on all substances ranging from alcohol to cannabis to fentanyl, and looking at all different levers, whether it be on the supply side, reducing demand, and analyzing the economics of these markets. Really trying to help federal, state, and policymakers in other countries have the information they need so they can have productive conversations about this controversial issue.
Now, in speaking about federal policy regarding marijuana, first, what is that federal policy? What is it right now?
Yeah. Well, as many people know, there are 24 states which have passed laws to allow the production and distribution and retail sale of cannabis to adults for any reason, covering more than 50% of the U.S. population. There are we have, I think, 40 states now that also allow cannabis to be used for medical purposes. But the important thing to keep in mind is that this is all illegal under federal law. And when we look at federal laws with respect to illegal drugs, we really want to focus on the Controlled Substances Act. Now, there are many different aspects to that act, but what seems to be getting a lot of attention is this discussion about rescheduling. And within the Controlled Substances Act, it places all controlled substances into 5 different categories, or we could call them schedule, with Schedule 1 being the most restrictive and Schedule 5 being the least restrictive. And the way that drugs get classified into these different schedules largely depends on 2 factors. One, whether or not the federal government recognizes that there's a medical value to using the substance, and then also it's a potential for abuse and dependence.
And
but
so,
while there are the,
so Bo, not to cut you off, but I wanted to put that on the screen actually so people can follow along with what you are talking about with these DEA drug classifications, starting with Schedule 1 with, as an example, heroin, ecstasy, and marijuana are in Schedule 1. Mm-hmm. Schedule 2 is cocaine and fentanyl, and then it goes all the way down to Schedule 5, which is something like Robitussin. Mm-hmm. This isn't an exhaustive list, but it gives you an idea. I mean, how did marijuana be in the same category as heroin and considered less dangerous than cocaine?
Yeah. Well, maybe while there are 5 schedules, it's best to think about this as there being 2 buckets. If something doesn't have a federally recognized medical value, it automatically goes into Schedule 1. And if it does have a federally recognized medical value, then it goes either into Schedule 2, 3, 4, or 5. So that's why you've got cannabis, you've got LSD, and you've got heroin in Schedule 1. It's not because the federal government thinks that heroin is, or that cannabis is just as dangerous as heroin, but that's the bucket that it goes into. And so if it doesn't have a federally recognized medical value, it automatically goes into Schedule 1.
All right, let's talk to callers. Rush, East McKeesport, Pennsylvania, Independent Line. Good morning, Rush.
Good morning, Mimi and Bo. Hey, I'm 73, Pittsburgh here, and went into the Navy in 69. And when I graduated from high school, I didn't know anybody that smoked pot. We used to drive down to Shady Side to see what a hippie looked like. Now in the Navy, I got introduced to pot out on an island in the Pacific. And then in the meantime, within that next year, drugs took over big time back here. My point is, I never cared for marijuana, and everybody I knew smoked it. In fact, it got to the point I would blow out on a joint to make it look like it was lit up and, give it a big inhale. And because I got paranoid. So now my daughter, a very successful teacher, this and that, she has neuropathy, so she was getting this medicinal stuff. But I will say this, so I quit, unless I had enough beer in me, then marijuana was okay. But a year or so ago, a little over a year ago, a buddy of mine, he's passed now, but his wife's been smoking since high school. And she had some, and they're out there taking a smoke break, and I went out. I thought I'd take a couple hits, and I did. I took about 3 hits. I'll tell you what, the marijuana she had is not the same as what you used to smoke, or I used to smoke. I mean,
all right. Well, let's get a comment on that, Bo, as far as the potency of marijuana today.
Rush, I appreciate the comment. And yeah, you being in Pennsylvania, this is a hot topic of conversation. But with respect to potency, there definitely has been an increase over time in terms of how people are growing the plants. And, if you look at the data from the DEA, when you look at the samples they've seized, back in the 1990s and even around 2000, on average, the delta-9 THC concentration. So there are a lot of different cannabinoids, but it's the delta-9 THC or THC, which is primarily responsible for intoxication. Well, back then, it was on average about 5%. Now, you definitely could get, higher potency product was around, but typically people were using stuff that was around 5%. You fast forward to today, and you go into a lot of these shops, and you're seeing the flower being sold with concentrations of 20% or higher. Now, we know that there is some inflation, and so you've got to be skeptical of what you see on some of these labels in some of these states, but there definitely has been this increase. And that's right now we're just talking about flower. But also there are other products that are now available. There are different, what they'll call waxes or shatters, which is a concentrate, which could have potentially, 80, 85% THC. And so that's whether or not you want to allow that to be sold in stores is a policy decision. And so far in the United States, while we do have potency caps with respect to edibles, most places, there are a couple exceptions, but most places don't put caps on the THC levels for flower or for the concentrates. And so this is something that policymakers and voters need to be thinking about. Do you want to allow the industry to decide these levels, or do you want some type of regulation?
Let's talk to Mary in Wisconsin, Independent Line. Hi, Mary.
Good morning, Mimi. I just wanted to mention that there is medical knowledge that the THC content in the marijuana has caused psychotic breaks for children coming in the emergency room. And as a result of that, they have been a long-standing history of bipolar disorder and other psychiatric disturbances like schizophrenia. And I've heard of people getting children in daycare centers, those little bears, and then having to go to the emergency room. What's going to happen to those little kids when they're 10 years old? Is their brain going to be damaged from the THC? And look what alcohol has done to children. We have to learn that we should not, succumb to politics and money to save our children. And the only other thing is it causes a lot of depression in people, and they get lazy and they don't want to work.
All right, let's get an answer for you, Bo Kilmer, on marijuana and kids.
Mary, you're right. As marijuana has become more available, you definitely are hearing more about, ER visits increasing, calls to poison control. One thing you have to keep in mind is the numbers that you'll see in the press. They'll say, there's been a 500% or 1,000% increase. But that's usually based on a really small number. That's not to discount the effect that this has on the kids and the parents. But if you look at the actual numbers, it's gone from something that's really small to something that's just a little bit larger. But you're right. And, one of the issues is, especially with some of the gummies, right? I mean, they look like a little gummy bear in a lot of places. And if kids see them on a table, they're going to think that's regular candy. And so that's why there's a lot of movement toward, using child-proof packaging, for some of this. But you're exactly right. There is a real concern. I mean, fortunately, most of the kids that have enough THC to have to go to the emergency room, most of them end up being fine. and there isn't any long-lasting damage. But there are people that do run into problems. And Mary, getting to your earlier point about some of the overall consequences, I think, whether or not we're talking about using marijuana or alcohol, I mean, if you've got a history of schizophrenia and mental health conditions kind of in your family, you need to be very cautious when thinking about using these substances.
Here's Constance in Chesapeake, Virginia, line for Democrats. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad that I'm following Mary's call. I'm a 72-year-old person, and I've been smoking marijuana off and on since I was 16 years old, and it never has hurt my mind. I feel that it's been demonized. Now, knowing the history of why it was made illegal, let's go to that right now with Mr. Anslinger and the, FBI. They did it over race reasons. They wanted a reason to pick on Hispanic people coming to this country and a reason to pick on black people in the country. That was the reason it was made illegal. Hemp was grown freely in this country, also was used in paint at one time, that if a child ate a paint chip then, it didn't kill them. It started to kill them when they started using the petroleum companies in the paint.
All right,
the oil companies.
Let's hear from Bo Kilmer. Go ahead, Bo.
Yeah, no, this question about hemp is really interesting, and this is another reason why there's a lot of confusion about what's going on. That you can produce hemp for fibers and seeds, and in the 2018 federal farm bill, they created a definition of hemp. So hemp is the same plant as what you would get your marijuana buds from. It's Cannabis sativa L. But what the federal farm bill did in 2018 is it said if that plant has less than 0.3% or less than or equal to 0.3% delta-9 THC, so once again THC, kind of the main intoxicant, if it has less than that, we're defining it as hemp. If it has more than that, we're defining it as marijuana. And what that meant is that those plants that had less than 0.3% THC then were no longer subject to the Controlled Substances Act that we talked about before. But what this has meant is there now has been a proliferation of all of what they're calling intoxicating hemp products. Because when you're growing kind of industrial hemp or when you're growing those hemp products, there could be a lot of CBD, which is another cannabinoid in the plant. And what you can do is you can take out that CBD and then you could synthesize it into delta-9 THC, delta-8 THC, which is also intoxicating. And so that's why, for example, you look at states like Indiana. On the books, Indiana is probably the most restrictive state when it comes to cannabis, but they allow all of these intoxicating hemp products. I was just there a couple weeks ago, and I went into the grocery stores and I was seeing a whole aisle focused on delta-9 and delta-8 drinks. That's something I don't even see out here in California. And so while there's been all this conversation about rescheduling and what's legalization at the state level, you've then had all this you've had all these issues coming in with these intoxicating hemp products, which technically are legal under federal law. Now, states have different policies with respect to these intoxicating hemp products. Some of them ban them, some of them are regulating them, some of them have no regulations. But this has created a real challenge, not only for policymakers, but also for researchers. For example, we rely a lot on surveys asking whether or not people have used marijuana in the past month. Well, if someone goes into a store and buys a 4-pack of delta-9 THC seltzer water, are they going to say that they used marijuana? So that's one of the things that as researchers we're trying to figure out.
President Trump has said one of his goals in sending federal agents and the National Guard to Washington, D.C. is to clear out homeless encampments. He has linked them to what he calls out-of-control crime and blight. A week in, the White House says dozens of encampments have been dismantled, but it's not clear where the people who were living in them have gone. NPR's Jennifer Ludden is here in the studio. Hey, Jennifer.
Hi there.
Tell us more about specifically how many places have been cleared out here in D.C.
So the White House says over the past week, 44 homeless encampments have been removed. We're talking about small groups of tents in most places. It says this includes all tents that were on federal property, and that federal teams reported, quote, no negative confrontations and no arrests. And that last point is a relief to local homeless service providers who say they've also not heard of any arrest. But there was another twist that played out this afternoon at a drop-in center that serves homeless people. Word went around that authorities might show up and check if anyone had an arrest warrant, and people there did hurriedly pack up their belongings and leave.
So where have people gone who've been forced to move?
So homeless service providers tell me it is likely that many are still living outside around D.C., moving to try and evade police or federal agents. They say some have gone to temporary shelters. The district government did make extra beds available, or some have left the city for Virginia or Maryland. I spoke with one man, 39-year-old Greg Evans. He was on a bus, so this recording's not great.
I've just been bouncing around some friends' houses for now, trying to figure out what to do next. Permanently, I'm waiting on another apartment, but I don't know when that's going to happen.
So he's on a wait list for a subsidized apartment because he says a drug dealer basically took over the last place he lived. He's had struggles with substance abuse and said he just needed to leave there. That's why he ended up outside again.
Wow. And some other Republican-led states have said they are sending hundreds more National Guard soldiers here to Washington. What does this big push mean for the longer-term goal of reducing homelessness?
You know, the White House has not really talked much about that. It's framed this as about improving public safety, although advocates point out homeless people are much more likely to be victims of crime than perpetrators. But advocates also say this kind of mass disruption will make it harder to eventually get people into housing. Jesse Rabinowitz is with the National Homelessness Law Center and said he's never seen encampment clearings like this past week.
It was so fast that I worry people were not able to save vital documents, medication, heirlooms, clothes, things like that.
And sure enough, Greg Evans, the displaced man I spoke with, says he lost his tent and some clothes.
Losing things like family heirlooms must be incredibly traumatic for the people who are displaced.
It absolutely is traumatizing, and just the mass presence of enforcement officers. This is something else that could make it harder to help people. Adam Rocap with the social services group Miriam's Kitchen, they help connect people to housing.
It's harder for us to keep up with and find someone. Or people trust us less, even though if we don't have anything to do with the enforcement, why would they trust anyone who's trying to help if people are getting moved around?
He and others also point out this federal surge clearly is costing a lot of federal money, and they wonder why some of that couldn't instead be spent on permanent affordable housing.
NPR's Jennifer Ludden, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody be outside having fun, eating fresh fruits and vegetables and good food. Put me in the mood for a festival.
Breaking news, a grocery store suddenly closes in eastern Kansas City, adding to concerns about a food desert. Thank you for joining us for Live at 5. I'm Lauren Magarino.
And I'm Brad Stevens. Shoppers and employees at Sunfresh didn't know about the closure until they were greeted by locked doors and this note on the front door. Kansas City invested millions into the store at Linwood and Prospect so that people nearby could have access to fresh food. But just a few weeks ago, the produce section looked like this: empty shelves.
This closure is going to make it harder for neighbors to get fresh produce. We looked for other stores selling fruits and vegetables in the area, and there are only a few other options nearby, and all of them are over a mile away. Live at 5, KCTV5's Ali Espinosa joins us now from Sunfresh. And Ali, this is going to leave a lot of people in a really tough spot just for access to healthy food.
Yeah, Lauren, that's exactly what people we've talked to today have been telling us. And like you said, we've actually mapped out the closest grocery store to the Sunfresh right here. Like you said, the closest one is exactly a mile away. And as you can see right here, they actually covered up the Sunfresh sign with a tarp. But what everyone has been telling us today, what they really want to know is exactly what happened.
It's tragic on this neighborhood. It's going to be tragic.
It's exactly what everyone we've talked to within the past several months didn't want to happen. The Sunfresh on Prospect is closed.
I didn't get a call. It just, I came over here and this is what I walked into. I came over here to get some sugar. I got sweet, all right.
Ryan Beal worked at the grocery store. He tells us people are confused and worried about what's next.
You got elders here. You got grandmas taking care of grandkids here. You got some people that come from other places because they don't want to shop at the stores in their neighborhoods. Well, this is going to be a dead zone too, so.
One of those regulars is Jill Buford. She tells us she would shop here all the time, even when the shelves were bare, as it was her only option.
And I really hate to see it really leave the area because there's so many people that live around here in walking distance where they can come to a store that's close to the community, to where they can get to.
A decade and well over $21 million later that the city's invested into the Sunfresh. The company who owns Sunfresh blamed crime in the area last year for lower customer turnout. Still, a Kansas City nonprofit who tells us they're stepping in to help and see where to go from here.
Closing is not an option. It's not an option. It is not an option. This store is needed, it's wanted, and I mean, when you talk about the food desert, here we are.
Now, we're still waiting on a statement from the city, but the owner of the Sunfresh tells us in a statement that they work tirelessly for the community and have been vocal over the years about the struggles that they've been facing at this grocery store. But other than that, they have no comment at this time. Live in KCMO, Ali Espinosa, KCTV 5.
All right, Ali, yeah, you really feel for people. They're just trying to get a grocery shop in, and now that's become harder. Thank you.
So how's the college responding to this incident?
We're having a race forum.
And what's that?
A forum on race, so we can discuss the incident and the surrounding issues of race.
So the usual lip service?
No comment.
MU says the Legion of Black Collegians cannot hold its scheduled Welcome Week event on campus tomorrow. Good evening, everyone. I'm Taylor Freeman.
And I'm Evie Allen. Thank you so much for joining us. MU says the LBC event is exclusionary because of its title, which is Black to Class. KMUA's Cecilia Koparanyan is here now to tell us more. Cecilia.
LBC posted the cancellation on Instagram yesterday. This is not the first time LBC has had administrative issues with the name of its historic block party. This video was taken a few years ago, back when the event was called the Welcome Black Barbecue. Last year, MU made the group change the name to the Welcome Black and Gold Barbecue in an effort to make the name more inclusive. LBC has email confirmations dated at the beginning of this month that its Black to Class block party was set to take place. But on Monday, LBC President Amaya Morgan says she was blindsided with news the event had to be canceled. LBC and MU had a meeting earlier today to discuss the situation.
We definitely worked in circles of conversation where it was seen as exclusion, but that is never what we do as the Legion of Black Collegians. It's literally in our Constitution that we are open to all types of identities, race, gender, sexuality, whatever.
Morgan also says the word black in the event title was never intended to make MU students feel excluded. She says it's frustrating for the organization to be accused of something they clearly stand against.
The purpose of why we do these things is so that the black community can find us. Several times I hear people talk about, oh, I didn't know where black people were on campus. I didn't know where to go to find my community.
MU sent KOMU 8 News a statement. It said in part, when holding events using university facilities, student organizations must avoid excluding individuals based on race. The event had already been promoted with a name that suggested such exclusivity. Discussions between MU and LBC are ongoing. MU's Welcome Black and Gold Barbecue is still on for tomorrow. We have a full breakdown of history and timeline on our website, KOMU.com. It should be noted, Amaya Morgan has been an employee at KOMU. Reporting in the studio, Cecilia Koparanyan, KOMU 8 News.
I'm getting in the elevator, and these two high school white boys tried to get on with me. And I just dove off. I said, y'all ain't killing me. I am scared of young white boys. If you white and under 21, I am running for the hill. What the hell is wrong with these white kids shooting up the school?
Order mandating the Uvalde School District turn over records from the school massacre. News 4 San Antonio has learned there are still some records being kept secret.
We continue to press for answers, and now our attorneys are sending a letter to Uvalde CISD warning them if they don't turn over the missing records, we may take further legal action. News 4 San Antonio's Mariah Medina joins us now to break down what's missing. All new at 6.
Last week, we noticed that the district didn't turn over hallway video from that day. And then on closer look, we discovered text messages and emails were also missing from this most recent document release. We did reach out to the district asking whether it disputes these allegations, and they didn't respond. But here's how we know correspondence is missing from the 3,700 pages that they gave us. Absent from text messages produced are some of the messages to Robb Elementary School Principal Mandy Gutierrez regarding maintenance of door locks, messages we know exist. Also, some of the emails from journalists requesting comment from district officials about the tragedy missing. Last week, district officials told us the missing video was seized by the Texas Department of Public Safety, which continues to fight the release of records from the shooting in a separate lawsuit. What else is in the records that haven't been turned over by Uvalde CISD remains to be seen. This isn't the first time officials in Uvalde provided incomplete records. In August of last year, Uvalde Police Department Chief Homer Delgado ordered an audit of police records after an officer came forward telling police officials his body camera footage was missing from the release, something the agency immediately self-reported. The audit uncovered nearly 50 videos were not turned over in the initial production. The additional videos were released 2 months later. An investigation into how that oversight occurred revealed no intentional efforts to conceal the video, but did expose technological issues and what city officials at the time called a lack of proper due diligence by an officer responsible for those videos.
That was Mariah Medina reporting. A spokesperson for the district responded after our deadline, telling us the missing emails were not part of the record requests covered by the court order. The spokesperson did not immediately respond to follow-up questions, nor did they address the missing text messages. But we will stay on this, fighting for transparency and working to get you those answers.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside.
The last 3 hours, the Clay County teen charged with shooting his parents to death pleaded not guilty to the murders. Action News Jax told you during the first week of the month when 14-year-old Trevor Lee was charged with killing both of his parents. And Action News Jax Finn Carlin is live outside of the Clay County Courthouse. Finn, this may have been Lee's last time in court before the trial.
Chandler, the judge here did allow a motion from the 14-year-old's lawyers allowing Lee to be excused from any hearings that happen before the trial starts next year. But the judge did tell Lee he does have the option to appear at one of these hearings that happen before the trial if he chooses to do so. But if not, it's likely the last time we'll see him in the next 6 months.
Mark Wright and Mary Hickson on behalf of Trevor Lee.
2 weeks after his arrest for his parents' murders, 14-year-old Trevor Lee looked calm inside the Clay County Courthouse.
We were going to enter pleas of not guilty.
After pleading not guilty to the murders, we heard Lee's first words in weeks.
Yes, sir.
You want me to do that? Yes, sir. Lee responded to the judge, asking that he understood his right to appear in court for hearings before his trial if he chooses to do so. The last time we heard Lee's voice was in a call to 911.
Well, I was going to ask if you could pray for me, ma'am. Right now.
I'll definitely be praying for you, son.
He'd asked the dispatcher to pray for him after his parents died. From Lee's arrest report, their names were David Lee and Brandy Smith. Clay County deputies say they'd been found shot multiple times in their home after an argument on the night of August 4th. Before they say Lee made the call himself, his sister in California called Clay County dispatchers.
I knew my son had a guys. I told him.
Deputies say Lee told dispatchers he'd killed his parents inside their Middleburg home, then walked to a church a mile away to call 911. That's where deputies say he was waiting to be arrested. He's being tried as an adult, but local attorneys tell us the death penalty won't be possible if he's found guilty because of his age.
They basically have to be given a meaningful ability to rehabilitate somewhere down the road around that 25-year.
none of Lee's family members were inside of the courtroom for the hearing that happened this morning. We are working to learn, though, if Lee is going to be held in jail before his trial starts, and it's scheduled for February 10th, or the week of February 10th in 2026. His next pretrial hearing is scheduled for September 30th at 9 in the morning. For local coverage, you can count on Finn Carlin, Action News Jax.
This question, why is this stuff happening? The New York Times editorial today. The Trump effect. See, this is what I'm doing with my money, buying newspapers like Dick Gregory. The Trump effect and how it spreads. It says we are on the brink, under Trump, on the brink of fascism. New York Times, all the news that's fit to print, editorial 12/10/2015. I say fascism is end-stage white supremacy. See, just like in Nazi Germany. Fascism, system of racism, white supremacy, determined to survive.
The family of a man shot several times at a Seattle park wants to know why police arrested the suspect only to release him several hours later. The shooting happened while the victim was hosting his pregnant wife's baby shower at Golden Gardens Park. KEMO's Joel Marino met with family members and is live at Harborview Medical Center where the victim is recovering. Joel?
Yeah, Mary, this 35-year-old victim was shot 4 times at close range, including one round that shattered his jaw. Now, he is expected to recover, but his family wants to know why the man who they say did this was set free. Golden Gardens Park in Seattle is a big draw for crowds, but became a flashpoint of violence when a man approached a pregnant woman celebrating a baby shower. The woman's daughter, who we are not identifying, says a stranger touched her mom inappropriately.
He made her fingers like a gun, and he just passed it from my mom's belly like this. He kind of touched my mom's belly with him hands.
The girl says first her uncle, then her father, confronted the man, but the suspect drew a gun and shot her dad several times, who then fell to the ground.
And then my dad went to the floor, and then he shot my dad on the floor on his back.
The suspect drove off, but police say he then called 911 and waited for officers to arrest him a short distance away. After hours of questioning, detectives let that shooting suspect walk free.
But the irony is, the person got arrested, and he got released within a few hours because he claimed that it was self-defense.
Riz Samad says the gunman started this confrontation, but the case may have been complicated because many of the victims' family members don't speak English and refuse to talk to investigators.
Every single Spanish person is paranoid from the law forces.
Samad says he is now working with those family members to speak out about what they saw so police can get the facts straight and can hold the suspect accountable.
How are you going to let somebody that shoot 4 times, an innocent person, you're going to let him go when he's being like a criminal?
The Seattle police say this is not a case of self-defense and told me today that this remains an open and active criminal investigation. Reporting live, Joel Marino, KEMO News.
I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it. It said they were suckers. They wanted me for their army or whatever. Picture me giving a damn. I said never. Here's a land that never gave a damn about a brother like me and myself because they never did. I wasn't with it, but just that very minute it occurred to me. The suckers had authority. Cold sweating as I dwell in my cell. How long has it been? They got me sitting in a state pen. I gotta get out, but that thought was thought before. I contemplated the plan on the cell floor. I'm not a fugitive on the run, but a brother like me's begun to be another one. Public enemy serving time, they drew the line, y'all. They criticized me for some crime. Nevertheless, they could not understand that I'm a black man, and I can never be a veteran.
More shock, I think, than anything else. I got hit really hard right in the chest, right here, real close.
Harold Powell tells me he's grateful to live another day
after this happened about 2 weeks ago on Seattle's waterfront. Cairo 7 got this video on Tuesday where prosecutors say the suspect, 32-year-old Gregory Tim, fired a gun at Powell's chest.
Right here's the bullet hole.
Powell thought that was the end for him.
I just went to I'm going to die, so let me call my family. The heck with everything else. That's just all I thought. I didn't worry about nothing else.
Powell, a Navy veteran who is also disabled, says it happened while he was busking on the waterfront like he has been for the past 30 years. He says the suspect walked up to him and accused him of stolen valor. So Powell offered to show him his military ID. But before he could get to it, he said it was too late.
I practiced being in bad situations all my life. Especially being on a submarine, you just got to be ready not to, if you have to face that moment, you got to practice.
Tim was arrested, but Powell says he hasn't given him much thought since then.
I refuse to complain, and I'm not going to let this guy, nothing about this guy live in my mind for rent-free.
He says he's focused on himself and his family.
Moving around slower and move around faster, you know. I'm just blessed, man. I can still do my thing with my family. I'm blessed.
I'm way up, I feel blessed.
Yeah, Greg, Seattle police said they did not find any prior convictions on this man's record, but I learned that the suspect was convicted for a crime in 2020 that caught the attention of the president. The busy Alaskan Way boardwalk was buzzing with tourists Thursday.
It was very scary.
When a single act of violence,
I hear a pop,
shattered an otherwise peaceful day.
People running. There was a lot of people running.
And put Savannah Aljo in the center of a crime scene. Court documents say an elderly man in a wheelchair wearing a military patch was asking for money. But prosecutors say 32-year-old Gregory Tim confronted him and ripped his patch off, demanding he prove his veteran status. They say the victim pulled out a large knife, then a holstered airsoft gun before Tim shot him in the chest.
And then there was the old man in the wheelchair. The old man had gotten shot.
He was taken to the hospital in serious condition. Tim is now being held in jail on $750,000 bail.
If you're the one who's the first aggressor who provokes an altercation, you lose the right to claim self-defense effectively under state law.
In 2021, Tim was convicted of criminal mischief in Florida after ramming his van into a tent full of Trump supporters. No injuries there, though the volunteers were shaken up. President Trump even reacted to it, writing, quote, "Be careful, tough guys, who you play with." Tim explained his motive in court.
I honestly felt it was almost my duty to say something.
Why do you think it was your duty?
I thought it was somebody's duty, because the only reason that this administration was getting away with these atrocious crimes is because we were rolling over and taking it. Okay. So how far are they going to push the American public?
Now that he's facing an assault trial in Washington, can that be used in court? It depends.
And if we do find something, we'll make sure to bring that up before the court.
But if it was vacated, you won't find it.
Exactly, right. If it's vacated, it won't be found because it's no longer considered a conviction.
Tim's conviction in Florida was for a misdemeanor in the second degree. For the shooting here in Seattle, he's being charged with a felony. Reporting live at the waterfront, I'm Maddie White, King 5 News.
Not the best week for 206. Not that Mr. Powell was shot this week, but still, not the best look for 206 Seattle to wrap up the summer of 2025. Gus T. Renegade, worthless Negro from Virginia, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, August 23, 2025. So I have been told. This, our weekly compensatory call-in. Dial in if you have observations, thoughts, counter-racist suggestions. The number to dial, you read a book. The number to dial, 720-716-7300. The code, 564-943. Pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 720-716-7300. 57300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. A few things before we get to the notes. Callers, invest if you think the C.O.W.S is constructive. Hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com. racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button top right corner. You'll also see right beneath the button links for PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo. Enormous gratitude to all of the investors who've nabbed an item or three, invested, kept us on the air for 16 years, items to be nabbed from our Amazon wish list. Me and Elon, super grateful. Listed under Gus T. Renegade. Much obliged for all of the support for 16 plus years. Hopefully worthy of your time and energy. Hopefully we've been accurate more often than not over 16 years. Let's see. One, I remembered last week, I think I was talking about food and the importance of eating correctly, which came up again this week. They were talking about those breakfast cereals, and I was a little bit surprised. Not that I thought like Frosted Flakes, I don't know what breakfast cereals they have in different parts of the world, but I know like here in the U.S., like Frosted Flakes, Lucky Charms, and all that nonsense, the sugar and everything else. I did not think breakfast cereals, for the most part, especially ones that they promote to like children and such, I did not think that they were healthy. I did not think that they had like regressed, basically what they said in the report, like less whole grains, fiber, the things that you would need, nutrients, less of that, more sugar, salt, who that red dye, number 5, all that, put more of that. I would not have thought, I would have thought it got, things would be improving now that we know the importance of nutrition and growing brain and all of that. Wow. Anyway, I mentioned last week, I was talking about eating, and I mentioned I made my curry last week in the slow cooker, and one of the best meals of the year, just delicious. And I think Irie dialed in. She said, man, it's lucky, you were able to go and get fancy items, and I didn't think anything I had was fancy. Maybe the fresh turmeric. That might be about the only one. Everything else, cauliflower, potatoes, not fancy. Not lucky either. I didn't think that. But I did remember, one, I made pad thai this week. I've made pad thai before, but this was the first time that I actually got the tamarind paste correct. I had been using the Indian tamarind paste, and I needed the Thai tamarind paste. That was the last crucial add, but once I got it correct, and this is something that I had been tinkering with since I was in California at the end of last year, because I ate a lot of pad thai while I was there, and I was like, oh man, once I get back, I'm going to cook this. And I did. I had been making it quite a bit, and then I was making other things, but once I was, oh man, I've been using the wrong tamarind paste. Wow. Also, one of the best meals that I had of the year, Gus's pad thai, veggie, of course. But I took a picture, posted it online to share. I said, well, that might be a little fancy because I had to break my wok out for that, and I had the vegan scrambled eggs in there and bean sprout, and I even had cauliflower. They don't normally put cauliflower in pad thai, but maybe a little fancy on that one. But I said, now that, lucky to have all the ingredients and such to put that together. I know if I was in certain parts of Virginia, I don't know if I would have been able to get all of the ingredients to make that. That in and of itself would have been a challenge. But I said yes, and I was reminded that was the spirit of the yoga retreat, to be able to cook for other victims who either don't have the time to cook, or victims who don't really know how to cook, or certainly don't know how to cook if it's going to be, we're featuring vegetables. Now, if you throw a rack of lambs, pork ribs, chitlins, ground chuck, barnyard clucker, the chicken, they say, you throw any of that in, oh, I got it, no problem. You throw an eggplant, cucumber, cauliflower, spinach, cabbage, what? Who? That was the spirit of the yoga retreat, that, yes, you could take all of this and make great meal. So, yes, I guess Irie was not talking fool talk last week. Maybe it is. Fortunate. Get healthy. You don't have to eat Lucky Charms, see? I remember Pam said that you do have a lot of non-white people who do not, for a variety of reasons. You live someplace where they got a food desert. So, I mean, fresh turmeric. What? They said it'd be like The Walking Dead. You might have to go on an adventure and risk losing 2 fingers and get shot at, get fresh turmeric. Lord Jesus. And plus, it's going to take 2 days by the time we do all the driving and run out of gas and get stopped by the police. Like, Jesus Christ, for fresh. And it's probably going to cost about $100 a pound. Anyway, the folks out in Kansas City, tell them you made fresh pad thai with organic bean sprouts and cauliflower. The folks out in KC say, we don't even have a grocery store. And this Negro talking about bragging about making vegan pad thai with the cauliflower organic, and say he don't feel lucky about it. We can't even go to the grocery store and get Cheetos, which is true. Lucky, well-fed Gus T. Renegade, and he had vegan sushi. Woo. I didn't eat it today, but I have enough rice so that I can make more. But vegan sushi for dinner, like, man, I had good eating this week, and I made it all. I had that curry, I had the pad thai, and I made vegan sushi. Does not get any better than, anyway. Eat well, counter racist logic. Don't eat Lucky Charms. Don't eat Frosted Flakes, Fruit Loops. Set you up, be obese, all that right there. And then they wonder, hey, why you got all these childhood obesity? What you say? Bay Area mom said, little fella, 8 years old, and he weighs 140 pounds. How much money you want to put down? He had some Frosted Flakes, Reese cup cereal, s'mores, all that junk. Might as well just get the bowl of sugar and with some red dye, number 40. Let's see. The constructive, since Gus T. vegan, I should have been doing my houseplants long eons ago. I mean, how are you going to be vegan and not do have any plants? You could at least get some herbs. I could grow turmeric. That could be one. We could at least cross that off the grocery list. You could be growing that easy. And ginger. Anyway. Houseplants, I cannot recommend enough. I would say that should be counter-racist activity, mental health. You can learn about science. You might pay a little bit more attention to the weather, all kinds of things. I still love my Monstera. In fact, I'd said, because Mary Kay, they went and hooked her up, just like Sue Klebold and everything, when they get accused of killing and raping and pillaging and everything else. We got your back. Look out for you. I'd said before, you get me an albino Monstera. You ever, Gus T, get accused of P. Diddy type activities? Say, we got your back, black brother. Know you love the Monsteras. We got you an albino one. I already have one. So at this point, we would have to get like really wild. Have to think some of the exotic. They have lots of exotic Thai Monsteras. Now, I already have 3 of those, but the exotic ones, I didn't know that they have tricolors and all these wacky ones. So any of the wacky tricolor Monsteras, the Shamrock Monstera, it looks like a green milkshake. It had to be one of those. But anyway, house plants. And I could even give a recommendation. If you have children and or you are a victim of racism, you say, oh my goodness, Gus T, I struggle with houseplants. I kill them all. They do not survive. It's just no way. Or if you have children, I would say pothos, P-O-T-H-O-S. They are indestructible, and there are about 1 billion different varieties. So, I mean, you can learn a lot about plants just from this one plant, because it'd be like, oh my God, there are about 15. It's a whole rack, a whole aisle of pothos. And some of them look really different. That's why I say you can learn a lot about plants from that one plant. They're very easy to propagate, so you can share them and learn about, oh, this is how you can divide up a plant and grow more plants. Now I have 2 or 8 or whatever. All of you can learn a lot. Plus, as I said, they are indestructible. All you have to do is just kind of casually remember, water them about once a week. Maybe you could even get away with 2 every 2 weeks, but depending on your climate, how hot it is. But just try not to forget to water them. They are indestructible. In fact, they are so tough. They are widely considered weeds in many places because they will just take over. You get them someplace warm like Florida, I think, they will grow huge and considered weeds. Indestructible. So you'll get to see them, and they grow really, really fast. You can share just one of those where you would get to wake up the next day and, wow, they've exploded. My goodness, this is crazy. Pothos. Plus, you wouldn't just have to get a plant that just is green. You could they have wacky colors, and I have 5 of them. It's not even my favorite plant. I have 5 of them. There you go. And even that's, how did you get 5 of them? Half of them I got for free because they are indestructible. So, man, if you get one, you could have 50,000. You could easily share it. Matter of fact, the one that I got from from growing plants, I have met a lot of non-white people in Seattle, throughout the Seattle area. In fact, the plant that I love, my monstera, now I started this month, I had 2. The month is not over. How many do you have now? 8. I could not be happier. And the only reason I have so many is because I have met a lot of victims of racism who have monstera here. They even have rare. That's how I got an albino monstera from a privileged black male. Even the other monstera that I was going to beg for, like if they ever going to lock Gus T up and say, you stole all the Bitcoin and raped all the white women, go into the clink. Say, get me an Aurea monstera. I have one of those too now, and they are amazing. Woo! Show off amazing. But even impressed a racist white woman. She had her garden. I pay attention to flowers now, and I was paying attention. She said, I cannot grow monstera. I never get them to live. And I said, oh, I have 8 of those. She said, whoa, my God, Jesus Christ. Impressive. You can be an impressive black boy on the plantation with the... Anyway, but pothos, that's another day. Pothos, that is the plant recommendation from Gus T. If you are 2 or 102, if you struggle with plants, or even if you're good with them, pothos. You can find a cute one or an odd one or whatever and learn lots about plants. They are indestructible. Now, all of that, do you know people are still grousing about Dr. Umar? Man, it's been weeks now. Now, wait a minute. I even had to go back and reassess. I said, is the problem Dr. Umar? Like, it's not system of white supremacy. It's not white people. It's not Mary Kay, Elon. No. The problem is Dr. Umar? Really? I am miffed. Again, I said, man, everybody that's doing all this content and video, did y'all invest in the school? Because some of these people, like when they go into comments, they don't even start with, now, I invested. $15,000 in that school. Where is my, but they don't even, they just grouse in general about people should do the correct thing with funding. I guess I keep bringing this up because Gus T was just accused of financial malfeasance with the Sade C. Robinson trial. So this is very common in many respects. But man, the greatest maldoers in the world, financial or otherwise, are classified as white. And I'm sure it's some white people, even if Dr. Umar did do something incorrect, which should not be celebrated, should stop that. But man, I am sure, man, you get to looking at these white folks. What was the folks? Bernie Madoff and such, like, you want to talk about doing some financial incorrect. The world champs of that. It's not Dr. Umar, and it's not close. It's not close. Come on. Have to see how long the cycle goes. Like, we're going to talk about Dr. Umar for the rest of the year? Really? Anyway, let's see. News reports from this week. The reading or lack thereof. Man, Dr. Welsing, even more important now. She said reading is more important than watching television. She said nobody in the world is just going down. People don't read and all the excuses, and we can get the AI summary. People don't even read their email anymore. It's not like I'm so busy. I got the lunch meeting with Elon Musk, talking about Space Station X going up and doing a little travel for the next 2 months, leaving the planet. That's not even the case. Like, man, I don't have time to read the email because, man, you got that Amanda Knox special on Netflix. Come on. I think I get 2 times. She said last week, the parent they were talking about, she was talking about her own academic program to help children, right? Correct, constructive. And the parents said, oh, no, I don't need all that nonsense. She said, I got the app on the phone. See, child ain't just swiping. Bang, bang, read. He said, have you, sat down and done all this with your child so you know what it looks like? She said, oh, no, I don't know. The Amanda Knox thing coming on Netflix. Man, sit and read with your child once a week. That's what Irie said. Once a week. And I said, man, Catherine Massey Book Club, you can sit, hang out with us once a week. Do a little reading. They could participate when we do our discussion portion. You all could discuss amongst yourselves, all of that. But at least once a week, because I know tons of parents, they watch TV together every day. Some of them all day long. Just a teaspoon of reading. They even said that for mental health, which I am not surprised at all. Turning those pages can be kind of trance-inducing. More reading. They even said they were talking about not putting no sales tax on books. Like, wow, has it gotten that bad? Jesus, more reading. Let's see, even more Catherine Massey Book Club. Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're about to punch another one as we finish up Mary Kay Letourneau. That has been a hoot see atoll. 206. Let's see. The report from Bo Kilmer. That was on C-SPAN, Washington Journal this week. Bo Kilmer, white man suspected racist with the Rand Corporation. They do the investigation on different types of drugs and their impact and trying to influence policy, I guess, there. Man, that it was so many components in that section where they talked about the increasing potency of the cannabis. I keep going back, Julie Stam, when she was a guest on the program, white woman neuroscientist, where she said if you are Under 25, you should not be smoking cigarettes, consuming alcohol, or cannabis. None of that is good for constructive, healthy brain development for a teen, period. And policy generally reflects that. But they were talking about the increased potency of all of this and children getting in it with some of these things we've talked about before. Them putting all these old goofy names on these drugs, narcotics, where it's cookies and cream, cotton candy, Chips Ahoy, Lucky Charms. These aren't the cereals. This is the wacky tobacco names. And then they got the edibles and all that. Gummy bears, they were talking about that, and that ended up with the children. And then, oh my goodness, and what is that? What is all that? And they said, he said most people who use the ganja, they won't have a problem. But some of the people who are repeat users, this could be a problem. And they even said, if you got some sort of history of mental health problems in your family, maybe you should reconsider using all the wacky tobacco. That's a lot of caveat. And same thing Dr. Welsing said over a decade ago, you still don't know what's in it. And they continue. They said all these hemp products that are not regulated, that have all these psychotropic properties, because this is not regulated at all. Hey, what's in this? Who knows? Has this been regulated? Who knows? Has this been tested? Who knows? How does that impact your brain computer? Who knows? That sort of environment, I think none of that benefits victims of white supremacy, because we're people, as Dr. Welsing told us, we don't qualify for mental health anyway. So white people dump all this old nonsense on us, call it self-medicating, and get whoever, K-Dot or whoever the rapper of the week is, put it in a song, put it in a video, what have you, get it on TikTok, and then there you go. Sobriety would be best. And even that discrepancy, get Dr. Welsing, genius again. And I brought this up last week about the federal troops in D.C. Once again, when we talked about the small number, minority of the Negroes, saying, well, I don't know, all this legalization of cannabis, I don't know if that's anything to jump up and down about. I don't know if that's going to replace white supremacy with justice or even make things better for black people. I don't think so. I don't know why that would be the case. One of the reasons that was brought up was the discrepancy between state and federal law. So a situation like this in Washington, D.C., not a state, but locally, cannabis is recreational. Recreational cannabis is legal. Not federally. Now you have all these federal officers. So Leroy got his ganja. Yes, you can be arrested. That was one of the reasons that we brought up. So if you're just out walking down the street, puff, puff, pass, now that's not supposed to be legal under normal local jurisdiction, what have you, just out puffing in the street. But I know Seattle, where it's also legal, recreational cannabis is legal, that's real low priority now that you got recreational cannabis. For federal officers, that might not be the case because it never changed. It's still illegal. That would just be something else to think about. We heard last week folks who were going D.C., Howard, American University, like, ooh-wee, I don't know how much protesting I want to do out here at the nation's capital now. Dr. King tried to have some march in Washington, D.C. Please. I'm going to catch you, Dr. King. What, Maya Angelou, she said, I got a birthday party, Dr. King. I do all that running around. Let's see. The music today was particularly scientifically chosen. I can give the playlist. I don't think I've ever done that, but we can give the playlist today because it was very deliberate. Every single musical selection that we heard. We heard K-Dot, already mentioned, and Rhapsody. complexion. That was the one for the soap commercial. They said, Negro skin, you got to wash that away. We heard the Ghetto Boys, feels good to be a gangster. Heard that one a few times. President Trump said, I'm going to change these museums. You don't go in here and talk about white people enslaving, raping Negroes. We done with all that. New day, new day. We heard Gil Scott-Heron, Washington, D.C. Yes. Whitney Houston, greatest love of all, Taylor Lee, 14-year-old, going to be charged with murder in Florida. Said the only reason that he is not getting the death penalty, that's the Cowbell case, 14-year-old who has one white parent, one non-white parent, killed them both. I said, I want all the details. What happened here? They said, you better be glad, Mr. Lee, like really, Mr. Lee, you better be glad he's not getting the death penalty like Ted Bundy in Florida, only because he's 14. That's the only reason. We're not going to George Stinney and we have to get a high chair and strap you. But that's the only reason he's not getting the death penalty in Florida. We heard Dead Prez Happiness, the Kansas City grocery store. They were talking about getting fresh fruits and vegetables in the summertime. You can't do that in Kansas City where the Sun Fresh grocery store is closing. Food desert. We heard Most Def, Dollar Day, Katrina clapped 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. Big Sean, Drake, Kanye West, blessed for the Seattle segment. Mr. Harold Powell, blessed to be alive. The money boss gangsters. Bronx niggas. Now, that one specifically, because I said we have lots of news reports. We don't have time to just be listening to Negro tunes and such. But when I heard that, and they gave their long list of all of the illustrious Negroes who have been born in the Bronx region of New York State. And they started Iron Mike Tyson, Bronx Negro. They went through their long list. Evil Minds. Most of these are Negro rap artists. Most of them, not all. Obviously Mike Tyson. But they go through this long list. And the report says that families in the Bronx, huge numbers with no Wi-Fi or personal computer. And I said, all them niggers that they just named, maybe with the exception of Mike Tyson, maybe, no Wi-Fi. You can't go over there. Can I get on the Netflix? I'm trying to see Foxy Noxy. You know, Amanda Knox, she's going to be on there representing 206. I'm trying to get the Netflix. You ain't got the, okay, you ain't got the, let's see. You just go down the line to all them niggers that they named in the Bronx. No Wi-Fi, or you're going to have to watch it on their phone because they ain't got no computer in the house. That is Negro culture. I said, dang, isn't Fordham in the Bronx? I guess you go up to the college or whatever, but I don't know if they got public Wi-Fi at Fordham. Man, 2025, and they didn't even mention white supremacy racism. They just said digital divide. They ain't mentioned nothing about no Bronx niggers. 2026, 2030, and you don't have no why. Then they go and talk to privileged black males. I can't even get on the YouTube and listen to none of my nigger tunes. I can't talk to my children. I can't get my Spotify. Oh, Lord, what we going to do? Now, does that sound like Negro that's running the world? He didn't say he couldn't get his Bitcoin, check his bank account. I can't get my YouTube, man. Get my... Woo! Reading is more important. Now, you can even put those two together. So black people got to be high on that list of people who do not read and then don't have no Wi-Fi and then don't have no computer. What do niggers do? What is nigger culture in 2025? What do we do? I'm asking kind of serious. I wouldn't even know to fill in the blank. 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 #. Press star 861 if you would like to participate. What you do if you don't have no books, you don't read, we don't have no Wi-Fi and no computer. What do we do if we are niggers? We got people, Kwame in the Bronx, we got cows listeners. BX, what y'all do in the Bronx? I've been to the Bronx. I've been to Fordham. What do you do in the Bronx? My immediate thought process, ew, that would be a scary place. Not bored, but that would be a scary place. Yikes. I don't want to stay here long. Hey, woo, you're going to have lots of idle victims of racism? Oh, man. Let's go. We got to go. We got to go. Buffalo, anything. Can we go to Syracuse? Anything would be better than here. Adirondacks, let's go up to the forest. That'd be better than here. They don't have no Wi-Fi up there. That's all right. We'll sit, we'll look at the birds. Audubon Society, see? We'll look at the birds. If I'm besmirching the BX, my apologies, but you'd have to tell me, what do they do in the Bronx? Make rap tunes. We heard Bronx niggers. What do they do? Anyway, we heard 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. Again, C.O.W.S has done extraordinary work covering what happened and the racism, white supremacy that took place before, during, afterwards in New Orleans. Let's see. The vouchers, that I thought was so important because they kind of centered that report talking about vouchers where parents have more choice for the marketplace of education. They centered that on the state of Arizona. John McCain rolling over in his grave. That's the state where they vigorously opposed Dr. King's holiday. And just, what a curious location. We are all about some school choice. Public dollars for private schools, and even that, the long history of white people saying, I do not want our children in school with no niggers raping our boy. And Strom Thurmond, ain't that right? Ain't that right, Strom Thurmond? You still back there raping that black girl? Well, tell her to put some clothes on. Come on here, Strom. We need you to talk about how we can't have no niggers in school with the white boys and girls. Yeah. Nigger boys is rapists, ain't they, Strom? Zip your pants up, Strom. Remember? That's the whole, and really, a lot of these white private schools and such, that is their genesis coming, especially if they started sometime around the year 1955, Brown v. Board of Education decision, 1960, somewhere in there. That's why we don't want to go to school with no niggers, so whoop, got our own little private academy. We talked about all this repeatedly. That's the whole history. And then Betsy DeVos, now it seems like it's much more flagrant assault. We're trying to destroy a whole Department of Education, get rid of all this, and particularly because they said, hey, some of this struggle with public schools with students is demographics, meaning white people are not having children. That's a part of the depopulation now, for sure. School choice and private schools and vouchers and homeschool, all that. Yep, got it. Okay. But white genetic population, white genetic annihilation, lack of white population or declining, all of that. Oh, man. That is also, we're going to have a whole lot of schools with a whole lot of black boys and non-white children. Trash, all that. Trash the school, trash them, forget all that. We're certainly not trying to invest and have no top-notch, high-quality schools if it's not even going to be any white children in these facilities. Let them go to the dogs, literally. I think that's what we're watching right now. It's been rolling for some years, but acceleration because it's fewer and fewer white children, unless I've been misinformed. Let's see. Last one I'll get in. Seattle, man. So we had two cases. The last three reports, that was all Seattle. They had the first report. Man, I have come on here for years, and I've said Seattle has other than Hawaii, and I'm not saying in the world, just the places that I have been in my time on the planet, with the exception of Hawaii, Seattle has the best beaches that I've been to, with the exception of Hawaii. I've been to Jamaica as well. I've been to Florida. I had to tell people, it's not like I've been inland all of my life. I've seen a number of beaches, Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean. I've seen a number of beaches. Seattle is pretty nice. Now, when I say Alki Beach is the lamest beach in Seattle, that's because we have a lot of beaches here. If you picked Alki Beach up, put it someplace else, it'd probably be pretty cool. I'm sure it's a lot of people who live here who think Alki Beach is cool. What? Those are the people who do not get to go to Golden Gardens frequently, or Mukilteo, or Richmond Beach. Lots of other beaches I could rather, but man, Golden Gardens is one of my favorite places in Seattle. I've taken my hammock out there. They have fire pits out there. I have seen seals out there. I've done counter racist work. Man, I love, you can pick blackberries at Golden Gardens. Man, to have non-white people get shot at Golden Gardens and have some race soldier, it was self-defense. He went and terrorized a pregnant non-white female and shot her partner in front of the entire family. He's on the ground and he's still shooting. And the SPD, they get this guy and it was self-defense. You got them crazy colored people. They let him go. That's enough. Now, if that had been Leroy, me, and I done shot a white man 4 times, no less, Cracker was cutting up. Get a few of them Budweisers and they just acting a fool. He was running off at the mouth and nigger this and nigger that, and I was scared for my life, so I had to shoot him 4 times. Well, all right. Well, be on your way, Gusty. You behave yourself out here now. What? Do what? Do what? I wouldn't care what language. I wouldn't care if they were extraterrestrials and they want to say illegal alien. I wouldn't care if it was E.T. He had a laser gun. He was spitting green stuff. I wouldn't get. You shot E.T. 4 times? Well, you're going to have to come on down to the station, privileged black male. We have to get an interpreter for E.T., but you're going to have to come down and answer a few questions. That's what I would expect. Let you go on your recognizance after you done shot E.T. Come on. Go out and rape a white woman. Come on. And then they get the shooting at Golden Gardens. And then, now, I've said for years, now Golden Gardens, that's one of my favorite places. I haven't been there yet this summer. Now, downtown has never been one of my favorite places. Mr. Harold Powell, 68-year-old privileged black male, Navy veteran. Now, he was shot in downtown Seattle. Now, part of me could be like, hey, you're grown. You voluntarily chose to go to downtown Seattle. That's on you. That's how that. In fact, you can keep that. We're reading about Seattle in the Catherine Massey Book Club. Now, keep in mind, Greg Olson talking about white center, like, oh, my God. Ooh, you got thugs and gangsters really out there listening to his filth-flooring rap music and his britches hanging off his pants. Oh, my Lord, you'll die in white center. Well, Harold Powell, Navy veteran, he was not in white center. He was at Pier 55 downtown. You can walk to Pike Place Market where they sling the fish every time they show Seattle on TV. That's where he was shot at. That is the heart of Seattle. You could walk to the police department from there. You could walk to King County Courthouse from there. That's not white center. He was shot in broad daylight by a race soldier who they said stolen valor. They said that like everybody's supposed to know what that means. If I was the only one, if I'm ignorant, because I didn't even know what that meant. Like, do what? They say the reading. Well, it's stolen valor. What is that? Oh, you think he's lying about his Navy service? I'm going to be real. I do not care. retired firefighter. We can find out you didn't really work for the fire department? Shameful Negro. I do not care. Neely Fuller Jr., he said he served 2 tours of duty in the service. We come to find out. Fuller, he pulled one. He didn't serve. Man, that tricky Fuller. I do not care. That is not no. What? You done lied, coon. You know you didn't step foot on no submarine. I got to shoot you dead in the street in broad day. He could have missed and hit a white person with a pumpkin latte. It's autumn. Man, even for downtown Seattle, like I expect something like that to happen in downtown Seattle, but wow. Mr. Powell lived, thankfully. Said he's blessed, get to see his family and such. Then they go in and say that this race soldier who tried to kill Mr. Powell on the spot, he got a history. He took his van and rammed a group of Trump supporters in Florida. That's another one. Like, are you serious? With all the instances of that sort of thing that's happened, even this year, look what happened in New Orleans at the beginning of the year. Remember that? Killed those people. They had to take all those extra security precautions and such. You imagine Leroy, retired firefighter, Diddy. They done hopped in their Tesla tank, mad. Somebody said something slick about Obama, and you don't talk about my former president, I'm going to get you. Pow! And they go run their Tesla tank into a group of white people. And they vacated, like, dude, what? We can't even bring this up in trial because it looked like they vacated the charges against Leroy. That would be another one I would put up as end stage white supremacy. And Dr. Welsing said this, we just have more and more and more and more of these types of events, lethal violence, mighty big bombings and all of that, more that guy that went and shot up the CDC last week that we talked about, just more and more and more. Same thing I just said, white genetic annihilation. Especially if this gets talked about more frequently in terms of white population and all that. She said you'd even have more Dylan Roofs, more tops, more. Talking about that with your offspring. Keep that in mind when you go out in public and such. Even really for that situation at Golden Gardens, for that, like, keep that in mind when you are out in public. My beloved 206, again, not our best week. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Let's see. Folks who dialed in with a hand up, you have commentary to share. Proceed.
Hello, may I be heard?
Irie mentioned repeatedly already. Yes, ma'am.
I'm late. I apologize. Me and my mom were working together on a project, but I wanted to call in and offer a constructive suggestion for school, since yesterday was the book club about that person. I'm not even going to say the name at this point. I have suggested to the mother of the student that I have been tutoring individually to ask for the syllabus from each teacher, because parents need to know what's being planned for the school year. And that's if there is a plan. I literally have walked into scenarios where I couldn't tell that there were any plans, like as far as just what was happening in general, let alone for the day. And I also believe I've experienced a lot more extemporaneous extemporaneously put together school days in certain instances than not. And it would just be good to have, because then you could study ahead with your child. I also suggest going over, like looking at videos or something, active shooter awareness and the process to the best of your ability, running scenarios mentally, reminding your child or children why it's not good to socialize to the point of disturbance, because you don't know what announcements will need to be heard. You need to hear the announcements regardless, but there could be a soft lockdown, a hard lockdown, could be a fire, could be, depending on where you're at, a tornadic event even. Sometimes it happens fast with the weather we have. And two other things. I'll try to be succinct because I know other people have stuff to say. I saw a video, people were commenting on clothing that not only teachers had on, there were victims of racism, black women going to school, and I would consider provocative clothing because of the way their bodies are shaped, and they were hashtagging these women teacher bae. Ridiculous. But the girls were showing up like, I saw the adultification of children through clothing, which is a promotion of pedophilia. And that needs to get said to any adolescent, pre-adolescent female. Are you trying to attract someone for sexual purposes with your outfit today? Are you trying to attract someone for sexual purposes that possibly has a mental derangement? You know, I've said that to children and they kind of would roll their eyes or whatever, but I feel like when I'm in a teacher position, I'm also in a parental position. So I'm going to pursue due diligence and put the thought in their head at least. The last thing I wanted to suggest is please go through your children's book bag every night, please, because I have been in situations where I've substituted for pre-K, Head Start, kindergarten, first grade, and I've had to go through book bags, and there have been instances of molded food, crumbled snacks, papers just crumpled up, toys, book bag full of toys, and they're not supposed to have them. And also for older kids, you don't know if they're vaping, you don't know if they sneaking alcohol to school, you don't know what. Like, what if you told them, hey, you can't wear that today, but then they wore it anyway, but you wouldn't know because you didn't go through their book bag to see if maybe they put the clothes that you told them not to wear in the book bag. That, you know, we've all done something we weren't supposed to, or put something we weren't supposed to have in our book bag at one point in time. I knew better because my grandmother, she put the fear of creation in me, so I ain't tried. So I'm not saying make your children fearful of you. Maybe you have to in the most nonviolent way possible, hopefully. I don't know, but you got to check on your kids. You got to check these book bags. And plus, you know, that's your children. And I'm going to do the best I can as an attempted educator this school year, in and out the classroom, and I hope the parents do the same. Please read to your kids and do the do homework with your kids, please, because they honestly, the younger they are, they can't really do it by themselves, and they'll get to the point that they'll just start lying and saying they don't have homework, and then they're going to fall behind. And that's that piece. I'll mute my line.
Irie is really talking crazy now. Like, I didn't do homework when I was a child. I'm going to do homework with my child and do their homework. You got that app on the phone? There you go. There you go. I'm going to be in here watching Netflix. You got it, Junior. The checking the backpack, very important. I've heard other parents, I don't have offspring, but I've heard other parents say, hey, if we learned anything from Sue Klebold, Columbine, check your child's room, check their backpack. This is not a privacy thing, and hey, unlawful search and seizure, and I don't, that does not apply to your child at all. Check the room, check the backpack. Hopefully, when you check the backpack, it will not be, whoa, whose pipe bomb is this? I don't know how they can, Tim had my, hopefully it won't be that. It'll be maybe at most what Irie said. You had this Lunchable in here for 5 months. How long these Cheetos been in here? Which you still want to clean all that stuff out too and all the rest. But yes, check the backpack, check the room. They are still children. They do not make the best decisions. The ward, I don't have offspring, but man, are you dressing to attract attention from Mary Kay? Michael K. That should be something that, I don't think we mentioned that enough. Like, I mean, when you want to go out and be cute, males or females, you want to go out and be cute, like, well, Jerry Sandusky might think you look pretty hot in that outfit too, Junior. Just, something to think about. Just something to think about, that, the person that you hope thinks you look cute in that, they might see you, but some other people might also see you in that. And, a little different. Let's see. Other folks who dialed in, if you have a hand up commentary to share, proceed.
May I be heard?
Lauren? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Gus. Hello, everyone, callers, listeners. So for today's segment, my comments, first, when they were talking about the grocery store, I think this was Kansas City or North Carolina. No, sorry. In North Carolina, that's when they were talking about the philanthropy, right? And the way people give. And they were saying, it made me think, I think non-white Black people give in ways that aren't necessarily tax deductible, and we don't do it for fame or to get our names put on buildings. We're just trying to help people. Let me see. The reading. It said, whatever you read is good for you. Over the past 2 decades, reading for pleasure has plunged by 40%. And it made me think. I read an article in the New York Times, and it said New York City schools, this is the name of it, New York City schools change how reading is taught and test scores rise. This was on August the 11th. I'm sorry if that's too long ago. But it said test scores climbed 7 points, and about 56% of students grades 3 through 8 showed proficiency in reading tests. Mayor Eric Adams framed the results as a prime accomplishment. Okay, 56% of students are proficient. So what is that, 44% or not? That's almost half. So yeah, I think it's desirable for the scores to go up, but almost half of the children not being proficient in reading, that's no cause for celebration. The article also said 73% of white students were proficient in reading, but only 47% of the Black students were proficient in reading. So that's related, interesting. When they were talking, the little girl who was talking about Katrina, it's been almost 20 years, and she said, a house is not a home. And she talked several times about home in that segment, and that made me think about Mr. Fuller and what he said in the code book. Practice thinking, speaking, and acting as if your home is not a particular place, but rather is a system of thoughts, speech, and action that supports the revelation of truth in a manner that promotes the practice of justice and correctness. Also, I didn't know that children in private schools are not required to take state tests. So I didn't find that out until I heard the segment about the private versus public schools. And Oklahoma was requiring applicants for the teacher position to take an America First test, but this is only required for teachers from states like California and New York. So I guess, they mean states with, I don't know, Democratic states versus Republican states. That was interesting. I think, well, let me see. I read some other articles that I thought were interesting, and I wanted to tell you guys about. There was one where it said a judge rejects Trump's attempt to end standards of care for detained migrant children. And there was this part in the article that said the administration argued that it should not have to be required to provide soap, showers, towels, or toothbrushes to detained children, which stunned a panel of Ninth Circuit judges. And so I'm not as comfortable as Gus with saying white people don't care about children, although the evidence seems to be overwhelming at this point. I don't know why I don't feel comfortable saying it, but I guess I'll just ask the question, do white people care about children? And also I read another article. It said that by the year's end, there's going to be 300,000 fewer federal workers. That's all I have for now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Spirit of Elon Musk lives on. So we got more efficiency to achieve. Moochers on the federal dole. Much obliged, Lauren. Shared the report of New York City Mayor Eric Adams and them bragging about the way that they have improved reading scores, or at least the test scores, in New York City schools. You can check that one out if you like, from earlier this month. Hey, that counts. Reading the newspaper, that right there, because some of the articles are a little bit longer, and you can learn local information, which is important. Dr. Welsing certainly advocated and maybe even bragged about reading lots of newspapers. So, for sure. The young lady in New Orleans, I wanted to make sure I got her. Joy, I was so confused because she spells her name a little differently. It's J-O-I, Joy. Metoyer, I think I got it. M-E-T-O-Y-E-R, Metoyer. And she was born after Katrina, but her family moved back to New Orleans. Even that one, when they were talking about what's so cool about New Orleans, especially what's so cool about New Orleans for black people. And they said the food, they actually mentioned the food twice, because they mentioned the seafood boils and the sugary ice, whatever. That sounds like something else, because it's going to have you right in line. So you start the day off with the Lucky Charms and the Frosted Flakes, and then we build up to the crawfish broil. Maybe they throw some corn in there, which we're not even going to eat. And then we get some sugary whatever ice because it's hot, so we got to cool down a little bit. Like, man, and hey, Louisiana is not known for having lots of healthy black people. I told you, it was people in. Matter of fact, you want stories that didn't get told from Katrina, make sure, well, I guess it was told because I know about it. Make sure you include the black people that were in such poor health because of the system of white supremacy, racism, medical apartheid, but diabetes and high blood pressure and all the rest of it, Frosted Flakes, po' boys, they could not walk out of New Orleans to save their life. Now, that's not saying once you get to the Crescent City Bridge and you got race soldiers with guns, to get on out of here, Leroy. We don't want no looters. But even to get to that point, you might have had to walk a little bit. You've been eating Frosted Flakes and po' boys in a system of white supremacy racism all your life. Woo, walking 5 miles in 90-degree heat and humidity, that is literally a bridge too far. Anyway, Joy Meteor Family Mind, we heard that one a lot. It was a lot of folks. That was Irie. She went to Houston too. I think, unless my memory is bad. But that was a whole lot of folks. Louisiana to Houston, Texas. Let's see. And then still being bummed about Seattle. Much obliged, Lauren. The number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943. Pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. We will be wrapping up Mary Kay Letourneau, or Greg Olson's If Loving You Is Wrong, about Mary Kay. Friday, all done. Session number 10, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and then neutralizing workplace racism on Thursday. Just check. I'm trying to see if we have other guests and such in the interim before Thursday. Check the social media updates and such. We'll post dates, times, all that good stuff, so you can be aware. More to come, certainly more to come, even from Wisconsin. Learned so much. Continuing to learn. They still dealing with all the floods and such in Milwaukee specifically that impacted lots of black people. But stay tuned. Check social media. We'll have updates for all of that upcoming broadcasts. Let's see. Other folks that have commentary to share. Make sure we didn't miss any folks. Grant, hopefully people are dealing well with the heat. Now, I guess we got heat warnings in the Seattle area today, but it's 82 degrees. I mean, you know, I guess that depends on how you feel about 82 degrees. I think the high today might have been like 85, so I don't know. Because I don't, as someone who has lived in Virginia and Georgia and California, it is known to get warm in the summertime. I don't particularly think 85 degrees is worthy of a warning. Even as someone who does not have air conditioning, I do not think 85 degrees warrants, you know, oh my God, we're about to melt. What are we going to do? If you got a spare ice cube, can you send it to brother? Like, come on. Come on. Anyway, for the folks who are experiencing extreme, like something beyond 83 degrees Fahrenheit, hydrate, stay inside. They had talked about that is going to be the new racism, white supremacy. Those who, we talked about that for workplace racism, those who have AC and can stay inside, and those who have to go out, brave triple-digit heat and all the rest of it. So stay hydrated. Even trying to figure, I told you, I made sushi. Now, I love sushi, but that was calculated because it's 85 degrees. I don't have air conditioning. We won't add to the heat. Can still eat really, really well. No heat added from the kitchen, especially if you're going to have that. Well, I guess if you're going to do sushi at all, because the fish is not cooked, so you don't even have to turn anything on, can still eat well. This is time when I really love my smoothies, can eat out of my blender, can get lots of fruits, vegetables, and smoothie, you get something that's icy cold, so I can even cool down a bit. My watermelon smoothies, I've talked about those for years. This is the time. But eat well, certainly not a whole lot of nonsense in the summertime, and then you wash all that down with a cool Mad Dog 2020. Saturday night, Black and I'm Dangerous. Negro culture. Did we get any folks for the Bronx? What do black people, what is Negro culture in the Bronx? If we don't read and we don't have no Wi-Fi, like what is to do in BX 2025? Do we have any folks we can find out? You all can write, let us know. Kwame, write, let us know what is Negro culture in BX circa 2030. We'll give folks about 5 minutes, see if they have other observations, comments to share. Do we have attempted parents with children under the ages of 18? Do you read to your children at least once a week? Again, hey, you all could tune in to the Catherine Massey Book Club. We read children's books. We read Turner Diaries. That's a youth read. The Hate You Give. That's a youth read. 1984. We got a rack of them. See? Catherine Massey Book Club. You tune in, have the whole family listen. You all could talk, take notes. But do you read with your children? Or you all could take turns, have the children read to you. You can switch off. You read to them a little bit, but listen to an audiobook together and discuss. You can listen to the audiobook as you're riding in the car and such. You know, take them to school or errands, riding around town or what have you. But do you read with your child? You have attempted parents? You know, I even said, hey, before you get to the bedroom, you have those 200 questions and all that, putting your child's dietary program together, breastfeeding, vegan, get them eating the cauliflower and all the veggies as early as possible once they're done breastfeeding, getting that library together for them. See if we can get 100 books for our child before they are born. They're already seeing the books. What is that? They got books that look like those are mine. Okay. We got a variety. We got some, they'll be able to read them when they're 4, 5, you know, pictures and all that. Great. I can read to them and all that. We got some others. These are for a little bit later on. You know, maybe we even put them on a higher shelf so they can't even reach them. This is for like 7, 8, but we're already setting the foundation. Reading, and we read together at least once a week. Anywho, Catherine Massey Book Club, we have done our part. Dr. Welsing, reading more. It can't be we watch television together all the time. Go to the movies together and do our Netflixing and all that. It can't be we do that every day, all day long, and then read. Hey, come on. Dr. Wells, I'm not pleased, man. Not pleased. Anywho, let's see. See if the folks are spectating or enjoying the rest of their summer. Last, I guess, weekend of some. Is next weekend Labor Day weekend? I have to see if that counts like official. If next weekend is Labor Day weekend. If so, man. It is. Start saying my PSA. Sobriety would be best. I think this is still a part of the 100 most dangerous days on the road. Say they have, at least in the U.S., lots of accidents and people out going to the beach and all that under the influence. Lots of folks. That would be another one I would talk about with your offspring. And if you are going to go out and be doing activities, I'd probably not want to be at an event with a lot of people, especially if it's going to be a lot of white people. But I wouldn't want to be at an event with a lot of people. And then if you are going to go, we already discussed in advance. Now, anything happens, like things that we've heard of late. Some white dude comes up, I'll take on any of you niggas right now. I'll take on all you niggers. It's time to go. We're not going to invest. What's wrong with you, man? What's going on, bro? That party is over. We already discussed, we got our rendezvous point and all of that. I would even say, hey, you can get to one spot and stay there, not running all over town and going here and yonder, and then we got to leave late. Maybe we're under the influence. They're going to have sobriety checkpoints probably starting on Thursday of this week, going all the way through Monday, I would think, the beginning of September. That's what I would think. The sobriety checkpoints might even start this weekend. I don't know. Still summertime, people acting a fool and such. And the college, oh my God, especially if you're in a college town like Gus T, the students are trickling back, or maybe they're already back. Maybe they already started the school year where oh man, they will be cutting a fool and under the influence for this whole week because they get back with all their friends, got away from their parents. They can really act ignorant. Man, be alert. I would be mindful of, just where you're going to be at, hanging out. Hopefully you aren't full of, hey, no parties. So you're not at the Labor Day end of summer bash and we going to get it. Be constructive. If you don't have to go to work, say next Monday, they call it the 3-day weekend. I'm going to use my time and energy in the most constructive manner possible. If you have tykes, you can get them ready for school. If they're homeschooled or whatever the case may be, enjoy. Get a nice hike in. Last bit of great summer weather. Do a little gardening. Do a little yoga at the park. Anything. But I'm not going out to the, party till 4 o'clock in the morning. And come on. Any hoodles. We'll assume, see any more. Folks have any commentary? I didn't see any hands. We didn't have any parents. Hopefully we don't have parents who are spectating, or folks in the Bronx who could let us know what is Negro Bronx culture circa 2030. If those folks are there, you can email in and let us know. But we didn't miss anybody. Any other commentary from folks?
Yeah, real quick. I'm also meeting more and more women, black women, whose children, young black boys, have IEPs, but they don't know what their rights are as parents. And I've been telling them about the NOLO IEP and 504 guide for parents. And I just wanted to put that one last suggestion out because, there was one parent I met while I was substituting for the secretary, and she was telling me how she was there for an IEP meeting, and I asked her if she knew about the book, and she was like, oh, no, I got this. They not going to play with me. And she went into the meeting, she came out, and then she asked me for the book. So I gave it to her, but I was like, okay, you can go and act like you're invincible if you want to. But, yeah, she asked for the book. And then another parent I know recently got their child tested and got results back, and she did that for the purpose of trying to get her son an IEP, but didn't even know what IEP stood for. So I recommended the book to her too. And I'll leave my line. Thank you. Good night.
Still learning. That's damn. Well, hey, you did great job offering resources and then providing them once, person came back and figured out that they did need the resources. But man, being an attempted parent is an extremely difficult job. Most difficult job in the known universe. I'd say it's no contest. But I would want all the resources possible because, man, it is challenging. And frequently you don't have any advocates or advice or anything. It'll be you against the whole army of people. Even if it's a school situation, it'll be you against the whole army of white people to say it's your fault Junior was misbehaving. It's your fault. You didn't educate him, or you haven't been reading to him or whatever. So, woo, man. Bravo to Irie, and yes, if you are an attempted parent, try to learn as much as you can so that you know everything in terms of resources that are available to you what your rights are as a parent, and then get that copy of your child's IEP and read it in detail. If you have questions, if something doesn't make sense, have them break it down and explain it to you. Great suggestion from Irie, and checking the backpack. Let's see. I think we nabbed everybody. Any other suggestions, commentary folks want to get in? Grand. Read to your offspring. Get that nonfiction book in there as well. And then if we have folks, if you have a little extra time and energy, the case in Florida, I'm going to do my part, see if we can keep up with it, but that case with Taylor Lee, the 14-year-old who's going to be charged as an adult. See if we can keep up with this case. Just if we can get more details. Did this have anything to do with the fact that he has one white parent, one non-white parent? Trevor, I said Taylor, it's Trevor Lee. Trevor Lee. Do we think this has anything to do with him having a white parent? Is that irrelevant? Yeah, just pay attention to this case. He's going to be tried as an adult. I'm sure the trial will probably not be sometime until next year, so we'll have a lot of time to either forget about it or at least to see if information trickles out about this family, who this teen was, maybe his siblings and such will, come out and give a chit chat or what have you. But just to learn as much as we can about why this case happened, and did racism, white supremacy have anything to do with why we have 2 dead parents in Florida? Trevor Lee, again, 14 years old. This is North Florida, close to Jacksonville, where this happened at. Trevor Lee, 14 years old, going to be tried as an adult, not the death penalty, but we shall see what happened. He had a black mom too, like pitiful all the way through. Anywho, check social media for updates about guests for the coming week prior to the Thursday Neutralizing Workplace Racism broadcast. And then at minimum, we'll have our normal broadcast times. I guess for this week, I'm checking to see, does that line up? I guess it does, man. So the storm for Hurricane Katrina actually struck on August 29, 2025. So we'll be broadcasting for the Catherine Massey Book Club on that day precisely. That is also the same date, or it's the day before August 28th, Emmett Till being lynched, and the March on Washington, August 28th. The march is 1963, and Emmett Till's lynching, murder, 1955. But we'll be on both of those days at minimum this weekend, perhaps even a day or two prior to all that. Anywho, sobriety would be best, especially going into so-called Labor Day weekend. Like, oh man, you do not want to be under the influence and then, sobriety checkpoint. Or whatever, the typical Labor Day, end of summer, we just got to shoot up the beach or party just because. Fuller say no parties anyway. Creator, we ask that you remind us to stop saying not all white people are racist. Remind us to stop name-calling black people. Stop gossiping. Stop producing throwaway offspring to be raped by Mary Kay. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cow signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Even my conditioning has been conditioned.